Well, you know, the Britisher could quote me by saying, I'd rather be lucky than good. And today's one of them days, just going about my business, doing some fall cleaning, and I got a little message, and I hardly ever check my Twitter, but preparing for the show, the boys really did it today, getting the topics ready. I was kind of looking in and seeing what they were talking about. And Nazi showed up, man. He's been busy as hell. It was like he wants to come by and see what's going on. So I think I can very quickly introduce everybody, and Nazi, if I'm not giving you enough time, I can, or the Britisher can talk for a minute. But I think you have something to say about something you've seen on Tucker Carlson episode. That will go, folks, for all y'all tuning in right now. We'll go without commentary. This is going to be a little, we don't have a name for it. Nazi's 2 cents. And then we'll get into some other stories. But I think we all know everybody. The Britisher, he's from the place history is made, and so is his mate and mine, also the common sense guy. And me, the laughing ogre. Boy, this is so much fun these days, boys. It really is. It's getting to be something I really look forward to. So what did you want to tell us, Notch, about Tucker Carlson? He doesn't always know what he's talking about?
No, it was just interesting to see how he could not seem to – he couldn't really rebuttal this guy. And I should have probably watched the video once again now right before because it's obviously, if you look it up on YouTube, there's a couple of different ways you can get to that link. This one is answer my question. Tucker loses his patience against passive-aggressive anti-gun lobbyist. But that's funny because that's coming from this one channel called Magical HD. So these people are pretty much being honest with what happened. Like Tucker Carlson.
Is this the guy he was debating right here?
Yes, that one. But there's another channel that makes it seem like the guy is the one that lost the debate. And I think that's part of the problem with so much of politics and our societal problems, where it really is.
I saw this. There was an obvious winner and loser, but again, I'm breaking the rules. So again, I'm just going to try to remember that this is Nachi's time. So I'm going to put a link out here for you all. Tell us about it, Nachi. Do you want me to play this at all?
Yeah, it's probably be best if you do that. Yeah.
All right, let me see. How long it is? The actual clip is okay. So this is the one. There's not like a shorter one, or the one that you had was like a summary. So if not, I'll just start it right here, or if you know a timestamp, I'll fire it up wherever it is that you want.
You'll look
both sides, and it's this. So hours after this happened, you heard people, armchair analysts, say this is a result of inaction. We could have stopped this. We chose not to because of political pressure from the National Rifle Association. But we need to summon the political will to prevent this. So the question is really simple. What should we have done to prevent this massacre, the one we saw in Vegas, the biggest in 100 years? What should we have done?
I'll tell you exactly.
Ah, hello, Mr. Dapperton.
Yeah, I see what I did there. I actually did pick one that is a breakdown of it. So I'll see if there's the original video is here somewhere, and if it is. And if it's not, I will find it. But we can see what it is. So he's asking the question, and you can go ahead and make whatever comments you want, Nachi, as I find that short one. Nachi, man. I want to be a nacho man. Want to be
oh, shit. Sorry. I forgot I had the mute button on. Anyway. Point is, that guy, Tucker Carlson, just to begin with, he starts cutting the guy off, especially when the guy's talking about specific policies. And the guy's not even talking about repealing the Second Amendment. He's being pretty sensible. He's talking about having some sort of licensing and registration the way you would do with cars on guns. And dude, Tucker Carlson just keeps cutting him off, and then doing what I've seen many other people, that I don't like, or people from the left. What they do is when they feign ignorance, he's like, I don't understand what you're talking about. I don't get it. You do get it, dude. You do get it. And that's where I do wonder to what extent, I'm not going to say that Tucker Carlson is on the payroll for the NRA, and I'm not an anti-NRA guy either. But it is sad to see that we can't arrive at some sensible policies that could avoid these needless tragedies. And then it's interesting to see some of the commentary I've been getting from this one guy on my videos. There's this one guy that every once in a while he comments on my videos. And It's funny because he goes by Audi Fortuna. You know, I love these YouTuber names. They're just so fucking ridiculous. So is mine, not G free. But anyway, the point is he's making some really good arguments, but I think a lot of them are just these right-wing libertarian platitudes that are along the lines of like, well, taxation is theft. And it's like, no, it's not, dude. And this country is not going to go the way of a Cuban banana republic. And don't worry, I'm not going to go down that path. But it's not going to end up in a dictatorship because we put a restriction on semi-automatic guns and some sort of licensing, some sort of very discernible tracking system on this. Like this guy could have been, he should have, you know, with the amount of guns that he was buying, the fucking piece of shit in Las Vegas, that should have tipped people off to do something's up. Why are you buying that many rifles and guns? So that's I'm coming from on this.
All right, man. And you know what? Before I'm not even going to play any more of that video. I would encourage people, and thank you for that link, Common Sense. I was having hell finding it. You must have seen me struggling, and a way to pop that up for me. I'm going to send it out in the chat, but I'm going to stick to what I said. Britisher and I, and he knows I get at him, and I think I get on his nerves when we talk about this topic. We will probably, especially with you here, would be great, Nachi. Find a time where we can get like 2 for, 2 against. I don't even know if it's the way to look at it. 2 opposing, but 4 people altogether. That way there'd be someone there to say, hey, Ogre, why don't you let them speak? Or, you know, that would be on the same coming from the side, and vice versa, like, hey, Brett, why don't you, whatever. It'd be a little bit more accountability. And do that sometime soon, I think would be great. But I think for right now, because I may or may not agree with what you just said, I just want to let that be. I want to let people hear what you think right now. It's a very serious time about this topic. So I think it's important that folks would be able to say their piece. I can't stress that enough. So what up, boys? All that heaviness aside, we'll probably get into some other heaviness. I noticed that there is one story in here about heaviness, specifically Britisher. But I think the first one we had was, I was shocked. I was back cleaning up, doing my thing. I'm really doing some fall cleaning, just killing myself in here with bleach. My hands still probably smell like bleach for a week. And various other cleaners and cleansers. And I'm going through the Common Sense Guy's playlist and his new stuff. And here's this Eminem. Some hot pots of coffee on. Look, I'm just going to kick it over to you on this, Common Sense, because you did the video. All I can say is it was shocking. And I still don't know what to even see. Freedom of speech, but I don't even know what to think about it. So maybe you can help us.
Well, I did the video and I did some sort of form of rebuttal to him, but when you haven't got coherent sentences, it's really hard to be able to do a rebuttal to it. As you quite rightly said, he starts off with, I'm going to drop a coffee pot on Donald Trump, and he's just like, okay, so you're starting off a freestyle without not doing it anymore. Oh yeah, I forgot you're over 40 years old now. You're kind of a little bit past it, probably, maybe. Not 100% sure, maybe. To be fair, though, I would like to point out that when I was growing up, he was my musical idol. Like every time I had any sort of problem, I would always drift away and I would always listen to any sort of form of his songs.
You say that in the video you did.
Yeah.
You mentioned that. I gotta guess, man. I want to hear what y'all think. I am getting a belly full of everybody and their brother telling me about, you know, all this stuff, man. I don't even want to hear about Nancy Pelosi from Adam Carolla. Shut up, Adam. Make with the fucking funny. Get Dr. Drew over there and make some jokes. SJW stuff. Just leave the politics picks. I don't like the politics with all of my entertainment. It makes me hate him.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, to be fair. I mean, with the idea of Eminem doing the politics on this sort of thing, he doesn't normally do that type of stuff. Now, don't get me wrong, he does do political stuff, but he never normally attacks politicians as a generalization, as a whole song. He'll slip it in here and there. But generally, it seems that he's been paid by this award ceremony to do this, because the freestyle that he was doing is nowhere near coherent. It's like he's just been thought up on the spot. That's how much pressure and idea that he's decided to put into it. He's literally just thought it up on the spot, and it literally makes no sense. Any of the arguments that he makes, which is very limited, just does not work.
And look at this crew behind him. I mean, this is just unreal. I don't know what to think.
Well, the one thing it kind of, that the ogre just touched upon when he basically said he would like his entertainment without all this politics. I think there is a place for entertainment to kind of once in a while make some kind of sarcastic remark or some kind of satire about politics. But how should we say, it's the way it works is that people basically use their celebrity to touch upon what would be otherwise difficult subjects. They use their position of, well, dare I say it? I mean, this word has become so toxic these days, but they use their position of privilege to effectively be able to say something that perhaps otherwise daren't not be said. But in this case now, what is so tiring about it is, A, none of them lose anything. They're not risking anything. They are effectively speaking as members of the establishment. And they are all singing from exactly the same hymn sheet. And therefore, it just becomes tiresome. Because this is not the court jester. This is not someone basically living on the edge who is trying to basically give you some kernel of truth hidden within some joke. No, this is just basically celebrities who are all part of the same circuit coming out with blatant political statements, all of which are on exactly the same side, and then assuming that we shall somehow respect them as being edgy and daring, whereas, of course, they are the exact opposite. And I think that's why most people by now would just wish them to all to go away.
No, yeah, if they had...
Yeah, go on, Nachi. I've been talking for a while. You go.
No, I was just gonna, because I did watch the video before, getting onto the stream with you guys, and I was watching it with my wife, and I can't even look at it because it's just so ridiculous. Because yeah, he's in his 40s, just like I am, and it made me realize I need to get my own anger in check because that's how ridiculous you look sometimes. At least I wear a Mexican wrestling mask, to try to show, look, I don't take myself that seriously. This guy thinks he is making this fucking pronouncement from on high, like he's the moral conscience of the entire nation, and it takes him to show us all the fucking way.
Yeah, he's basically the voice of the street. That is what he's trying to tell us.
Yeah, the voice of the street when he hasn't lived anywhere near the street for about 30 years, or almost 25 years at least. Yeah, he's definitely the voice of the street, definitely. But I would like to point out that he says that Donald Trump's racist and all the other bits and pieces you expect. But then he's done this little bit of a cliche little acting bit where he talks about all Southern, about all the war and everything. And it's just like you're trying to talk about somebody being racist, but yet you're doing a stereotype for a Southern accent. Who's doing what to who to when to how now? Do you not see the hypocrisy in your statement? Or...
I would still actually like to hear what Trump has actually ever said that was racist. To this day, I don't really understand what it's supposed to have been.
Well, they're trying to turn the whole thing. They're trying to make the whole NFL thing look like, and like with Spike Lee. Spike Lee just recently came out and he said that the NFL owners are exactly like plantation owners, and you're like, oh my god, dude.
What? So they're being whipped now. They're being whipped and put.
Boy, the plantation owners would have been out of business paying them kind of salaries.
Yeah, bloody hell.
Even when you think of percentage wise.
Yeah, I think Spike Lee hasn't been near the street anytime soon. Also, by the sound of it, has he?
None of these people. And I had it fluttered out of my head.
Sorry, Yoga, that was my fault.
No, it wasn't your fault. I was actually grasping because you were saying something before, and when you have here it is, Marlon Brando. Look, nobody was clapping when he sent Sacagawea up there to say, you white man took our land and he don't want this. He sent me up here to tell you what I've been trying to say, and he gave me this platform. They cut to commercial. He didn't have no friends. And now everybody that was around back then, it's kind of like the fight that went down that you seen in the school. You know, you and two of your friends seen it, and it was one of your boys and somebody else's boy, and it was really only like 7 people there. But the next year at school, there were 300 people that seen it, you know, and they were all there, and they're holding it. You know, it's kind of like that snowball effect, where everybody from that era is like, oh yeah, I was right there with him, but I didn't say anything because no. And now you said it in a nutshell. I can't respect people that are going with the lulling herd. They're not doing anything original. They're not being heroic in any way. And yes, as weird as it might have been, Marlon Brando was. He was freaking hated for what he did by everybody, especially the Harvey Weinsteins of the world.
Well, I think one thing that's not mentioned enough is that I think what's going on, especially with Trump, is just it's collective hysteria, you know. And I think I'm starting to see it with what little I understand with what's going on in Catalonia. And I heard you guys talking about Catalonia the other day, so I know Common Sense guys.
We're not going to be talking about that today.
Too bad, because Spanish, right? You're Spanish, a little bit maybe.
But I think one thing that doesn't get brought up enough, and maybe I should do a video about it, is that it's a collective hysteria. And I think that collective hysteria comes from the fact that the majority of people really don't think for themselves. They really don't. The majority of people don't take these issues apart. What they do is they look at their surroundings, they look at their tribe, you know, their immediate tribe and shit like that, their family, friends, co-workers, and they're not confrontational. They don't want to offend. So like, okay, everybody hates Trump. I guess I'm going to hate Trump too. I think that's really what's going on as well. Granted, with that said, Trump's not doing himself any favors. The way Trump handles a lot of these situations, he brings it on. He brings it on. But I think it's also important to understand the psychology of Trump. People like Trump and Harvey Weinstein, to tie that fat fucker into this whole thing, these are guys that they're so focused on their goals. They don't care who they're stepping on. I think that's the problem. And these are guys that they don't mince words. They don't waste time with other people's feelings. That was another interesting thing about Donald Trump. One time they asked him about him being so shallow. And he said something very profound, actually. He was like, actually, the fact that I'm so shallow has been one of the secrets to my success, because I don't dwell too much on thinking things through. I just make decisions real quick.
Yeah, I don't get attached to the building or the car or the yacht or whatever. I sell it if I need to, if I want to, if I can make a dime.
And very few people understand that. I don't even look. I always wanted to be a business tycoon myself. I'm 45 years old. I'm far from that, and I've realized I just don't have that in me. You know what I mean? I am a little. I'm not saying that. Oh, I'm not trying to virtue signal that I'm so thoughtful of and so considerate of other people's feelings. That can be a real asshole. But especially when it comes to like even my own art, it takes me a long time to produce stuff because I want everything to be perfect and just right and blah blah blah. People like him are like, fuck that, blah, blah, blah. And the last thing I'll say really quick, I'm noticing it at this place that I'm working at right now. And part of the reason why I put in a fucking 85-hour work week last week, fucking working Saturday and Sunday, it's interesting because the owners, who I really respect, man, I think business owners are rock stars in my head. Okay, I love business owners and entrepreneurs. But you see how they are. They're not very thoughtful. You know, and they just plow through. They're like, fuck it, do it. Just fuck it. And it's amazing how much, like, there's never enough time to do the thing right the first time, but there's plenty of time to do it all over again. And that's what they've been doing. They've been doing, and they finally told me to take this day off because they're like, look, we need to get our shit together. And then that's and that's what we're getting with the country right now.
I just wanted to quickly take it back to the Eminem video because I've missed something that I think that all of us should really be talking about, and it's something that happens at the end of the video where he says to all of his fans or all the people that are watching it, I'm going to draw a line in the sand that you're either with me or you're against me. Now, I made this point twice in a video. Anybody that does that to make people make a choice in itself, when you're trying to say that you have a dictatorship in power, is an oxymoron, or just a moron. Maybe just take the oxen out. Yeah, just a moron.
Well, that was the thing that stuck out in my head about the video also. And I knew it. I told my wife right before we watched the video, I was like, I'm willing to bet that this guy's going to make false accusations of racism. he is going to and do that also. He's going to basically cause a division. He's going to call for some sort of division, and I knew it, and there it was, you know, and clearly
the thing is, in this case, as you say, it's causing a division, but on the claim of principle
or morality, which is more the point.
And the sad thing is, it's based on a false accusation.
Yeah, that's why I classify it as morality. Because what he's trying to say is, you either like me or you like Trump. If you like Trump, then F you as he did on the song. But if you like me, then stand with me and tell Trump to go away type thing. And
yeah, and I'd love to play it, but it says BET stamped on it, so I'm going to leave it to what you're doing right now, Common Sense. And y'all got to deal with that, because I want to play this, but so often when I do that, then everything we said goes away because they strike it down, and it's a big pain in the butt. So
it's actually rather funny to talk about Eminem pretty much paraphrasing George W. Bush, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're either with me or you're against me.
He says that exactly. He said either for it or you're against it.
That stuck out in my mind also, the fact that it's the BET, the Black Entertainment Network, or whatever. You could tell he's like virtue signaling to a large degree to what he assumes is not even assume. I'm pretty sure he knows down to the fucking T who his demographic is and who his market is. And he's trying to do that. He's trying to basically really, really make sure that everybody knows he's not a racist. And that's the saddest part about it. In his zeal to do that, he is causing that much. And I don't think it's going to cause that much problems. I'm hoping it won't. I don't think we're going to go to a fucking racial civil war because of Eminem's fucking video. I think a lot of people are going to look at it and realize
the ultimate call to arms. Eminem, basically, in 100 years from now, pupils will be asked in the schoolrooms, and what caused the Second American Civil War, children? And they're all going to be there with their hands up in the air, and it was a rapper called Eminem, sir.
And his song "Toy Soldiers" was playing in the background while he was dissing Donald Trump.
Oh, man. Our first dear leader, the beloved Eminem.
Follow my blonde hair, blue eyes, white skin face.
Yeah, no kidding. I did notice in this video that all of the crew there are all black people.
Every single
That's
one.
Not very diverse. That's not very diverse, is it?
No, definitely not. It's all one demographic. How is diversity one demographic? I thought it was a mixture of every.
Does he count? But he's not in the crew. He does do a lot of he does do a lot of subliminal things. Like he keeps pointing back to them and going like this when he says things like Colin Kaepernick and talking about holding up the hands and standing. He's definitely a virtue signaling piece of shit. That, man, I don't want him to starve to death and die today. Because it takes like 60 days for that to happen.
But in 60 days, we'll come back.
Is he from Detroit?
Yes, he is.
Yeah, no, man. He's a blight on Detroit, man. Detroit's pretty egalitarian in nature. They'll kill anybody down there. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, there's no discrimination. White, black, old, young. I want your purse.
They'll rob and kill your ass. They don't care where you're from, what color you are. I don't care.
Well, no, I just thought it would be apt to point out that it was a true Michigan boy.
Oh man! And then no, he's not. He's a Detroit boy. And then because you have this moron running. Anyway, man, why my state? Why the state I live in? I wasn't born here. It's not my state, but I do love it. So
Did you know what the best thing is, Ogre? He actually did the video in Detroit, Michigan, as well.
Yeah, I can see that. It's like some seedy looking carport. And they got all these old caddies and Buicks and whatnot. It's just ridiculous. They're glorifying it, but the folks that really are black that drive around in the old caddies and Buicks that are like 1972 Buick, 1978 caddy, it's barely running loud as it just rickety, no windshield. No insurance, of course.
Obviously, they're not going to be able to afford insurance because of the blight that is Detroit.
And they look at these people, and if you have a decent car, you don't want to drive it in Detroit. It's one big pothole. That's all it is.
You're going to lose your rims, not because you're driving and hit a curb, because once you stop at a traffic light, they're gone.
It's so close they could just Give it to Canada, man. Make it part of Windsor. We can have it.
I remember one time, this one year where I got to drive all around the country, and I was going from city to city and stuff like that. And Detroit was the one city where because when I was going from city to city, you start to notice a pattern, and so many American cities are very similar to one another. And the way you can get around them with the downtown and the center and blah, blah, blah. So you just notice this pattern. But Detroit was the one and only city. When I got there, I was like, this feels like a war zone, dude. It just felt like a third world country, man. And immediately, of all the places I went to, as soon as I pulled up into the gas station, it was the only place, the only city where guys came up to me while I'm trying to pump gas, trying to sell me fucking VHS tapes, because this was back in 1999. I felt extremely unsafe, you know, and I remember I had my gun with me, so I was like, holy shit. When I went to go pay, the guy was behind like it's not just like fucking bulletproof glass. It was like bars on the glass and shit. And I was like, wow, man, what the fuck is up with Detroit, man? And yeah, so, you know, he must know some of that. I mean, that's the thing. And that's the thing. I would love, if he really knew what he was talking about, he should get into also the root causes of those problems and the dysfunctional families. He supposedly came from a single mother in a trailer park. You know, it doesn't want to talk enough about that. I mean, he wants to call his mother a whore and a bitch and this and that. Why
Talk
not
about chopping women up and beating their ass. I can't. That's what I'm saying, man. I don't even know how much more time we care to talk about Eminem. But here's the fact. It's a bummer to me that his political ideas are relevant. And I think the best point made and hammered on today about this was, in the end, he says, here, I'm going to draw a line. You either think like I do and like who I like, or F you. Man, that is just the worst kind of human being in my mind, period. Simple as that. I don't like him. I never did like him, though, so it's not like anything's changed.
I always thought he was overrated. I mean, first of all, I didn't grow up listening to his music, because by the time he was like a big star, I was already an adult, so I didn't really relate to his stuff. But I remember around 2002 when 8 Mile came out and all that, and like the write-ups that they were making on him, like he was a lyrical genius, and he was like the fucking voice of his generation. I'm like, dude, you guys are like, how much are you guys getting paid to write these fucking reviews? You know?
Well, to be fair, in the songs that he actually writes, I mean, obviously I'm going to come from a completely different perspective because I did grow up with him. So I can understand and emphasize with people that are not looking at it in the same lens as I would with my rosy glasses. But generally, most of the stuff that he was writing at most of the time, bar his first song, always sort of touched what I was going through, or something that I was going near, or something.
Cyndi Lauper was important to me. No, I shouldn't cut you off like that. Go ahead. So in other words, his lyrics touched you, like kind of like hit like Weinstein would touch a young actress.
Very much so. Very much so, to the point where he would be touching my breast on a regular occasion because he's so used to it.
That was a very good segue, by the way.
Yeah, I keep doing that. That's not even the next story.
We now seem to have moved on to the Harvey Weinstein story, as that has developed somewhat over the last day or two.
Yeah, I know I keep mentioning it, but I really desperately don't want to. I want to talk about fat kids. And I'm going to do my best.
We might as well touch on Weinstein, given that he's been brought up about 14 times in the last 5 minutes.
Take it away, Brett. You know more about this stuff than I do.
I mean, we basically spoke about Weinstein. I always have to stop myself from saying Weinstein, but it's Weinstein. Yes, Frankenstein springs to mind.
Well, he is a bit of a monster.
When we mentioned him the last time we were on, we were basically all kind of agreed that, look, there wasn't really any evidence against him. And that this all seemed to be a bit, bit of a wild goose chase. Well, since then, of course, there has been this tape released, which, well, left it in pretty little doubt that he did seem to have a bit of a routine with young ladies, whether they were too enthusiastic about him or not. So that did kind of put a different coloration on it. However, and this is more than likely where I then digress from the script that the kind of, the entire entertainment industry and the entire news industry seems to have, and that is, I just still don't believe many of the voices that seem to be coming to the fore here. I mean, we seem to have a collection of, multi-millionaire leading ladies who are somehow claiming to have been, to be too vulnerable to speak out against Weinstein. Whereas, of course, at the height of their powers, some of them were or still are some of the most powerful figures in Hollywood. Because we know full well that when it comes to films, the boot is very much, on the other foot. It's the film stars who control it, not the actual producers. And I couldn't help but get the impression that some agents will have been calling their talent, in which they effectively will have said, look, you are known as one of the most desirable women in the world. What signal does it send out if the man who seemed to have been groping every skirt that moved in Hollywood wasn't interested in you? What does it say about your desirability? So effectively, you better get yourself out there and claim that you too were harassed.
I don't know about that, sorry.
That's really the impression I'm getting. Now, I know this could be tinfoil hat, but I don't quite believe some of this.
I don't know. I'm not saying that Ronan Farrow, Mia Farrow's son, who's clearly Frank Sinatra's son as well. Supposedly he's Woody Allen.
Now we got to get our tens out.
No, he wrote a pretty good article in the New Yorker where he interviewed quite a few of these women, and one of them who, God, let me see if I can pull it up. I should have already had it up on screen. And again, if these stories are true, and if they're being pretty accurate, they're pretty detailed. Yeah, this guy could actually be probably tried or prosecuted for rape. And one of them managed to call the police. And they did an underground operation or an underground sting where they had her wired. And they actually, in the article, if you read it on the New Yorker, they actually have a little bit of the tape of when she's trying to get away from Harvey Weinstein. And it's his voice. And it's him like, please don't embarrass me, Bob. So
Can I be the voice of reason just for a moment? Can I be the voice of reason? We've shifted the goalpost. They keep shifting the goalpost, and so let's go back, 2,000 years ago. You're talking about slaves. Well, if I had a slave in anywhere, basically, I would, I could have sex with them. Women were largely considered objects. You married your daughter off for money. All these things. Well, hang on now. All these things they keep moving the goalposts. They said, well, things got to change. Well, look. Back in the 80s and 90s, what he was doing as horrible and as just pearl-clutchingly terrible as everyone feels it is, it wasn't even a bad thing at the time. I know everybody wants to go say, oh, you're a rape apologist. No. Now, don't get me wrong. If they come out and he held some girl down by the face and was putting the Weinstein to her, no, well, that's rape. You need to go to prison for that because that would. But if it's all this, look at the boobies, ooh, nice pooter. There's so many converging factors, and that's just the way it was. It's not that way anymore. If he was doing that, and I don't know, I don't think it came out, but if he was doing that, I don't know, put a date on it before 2005. But pre-2005, man, it was just all in good fun and part of being an actor and or actress. Who thinks that there ain't been dudes? Think about Corey Feldman in the two Corys. You think there ain't been dudes, young and old, that were in there, thought they were just acting for a part? There's Brad Pitt. He thinks, I'm a big bad Mr. Brad Pitt. Ain't never going to happen to me. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, Weinstein walks in and says, hey, Bradley. And, it's so you're making the decision at that time. Hasn't anyone seen the movie, The Producers?
No.
Okay. Yeah. Of course, the producers. Yes.
The play. Yeah.
Springtime for Hitler.
Well, and also the woman, I can't remember her name because she's got a messed up name anyway.
The secretary.
Yeah, their secretary, she's smoking hot, and they make it like the producers get laid if they want.
No, and that's the thing. And by the way, with Britisher, I mean, yes, I don't doubt that some of these women are probably doing a little bit of that too. Like, oh my God, if I don't come out, and
I think we have to, before you go on, we have to kind of qualify here that basically, if there are some kind of lesser known actresses or models who are kind of speaking out, then yes, that I understand. It's when it's the Gwyneth Paltrows and the Angelina Jolies and whatever who are coming out saying, yes, I was harassed. And you just think, no, I don't believe that.
If they just regret it, Britisher, it don't count. I'm not buying it. So if they give it up some little bit for the Weinstein, and then later on they're like, dang, I gave up some, and I really,
how many photographs are there of Gwyneth Paltrow and Weinstein at a charity event and whatever, arm in arm and whatever, and you just think, I'm sorry, I don't quite buy it that he is supposedly her abuser and she just can't stay away from him. No, I don't. I really don't buy it.
See, I've only got 2 points on this story. One of the main points is Lily Allen's song that came out many years ago. And she states in it, you all know what you got to do to become famous. And I think that's, I think that's kind of what the point is, isn't it? Like, the reason why so many people there who are all supposed to be talented, I mean, I don't mean this in a horrible way. Yeah, acting's a very hard skill to learn and master. But
Is it really?
No, well, I don't think so.
I think it is. To be fair, to generally be able to
act, man, that does it. It's not. Go ahead.
Well, to be fair, I think for the top
it's
ones,
as hard as being a coal miner. We already decided that rock stars and actors like being a coal miner. So carry on.
But anyway, I personally feel that it is quite a hard job. I'm not saying it's the hardest job in the world, but to be able to put yourself in that position is quite hard. So for people that are just mediocre, that are trying to get their breaks and things like that, they're not particularly refined in their art, so to speak, are going to find a leg up. And as Britisher has said before, I use that pun intentionally. But as British has said once before, we all know what the idea of the casting couch is. We all know what that idea is. Does that apply to the fact that people go, oh, yeah, well, that's classified as rape now? Well, no, if you're actually going in and you want to get the part and you want to do something and you're doing it to get the part, that's not rape.
Man, Steven Seagal's in trouble.
It may be classed as forced coercion, but it's not classified as rape, and it never will be, because you never said no, you never fought away, you never went away. You were old enough to know what was going on. Yeah. My other point on this story is, if it is true, why the hell did nobody goddamn speak out about it? I know people go, oh yeah, but people tried like 10 years ago to come out and say stories. Well, if they really felt that bad about it, why didn't they come out individually and say it? It's like what Britisher says. It's a story where you look at it and you think, okay, yeah, it probably is true to a point, but not to the level of what everybody's saying it. It's not like a systemic rape thing that's going on. It's like a casting couch type of thing, I would presume.
You guys want to hear the tape? Because I actually got it here, and it's only like a minute, or it's like about a minute. If you guys want to hear it. This is the film executive admits to groping a woman in a recording secretly captured during an NYPD sting operation.
What do we have to do here?
I'm going to take a shower. You sit there and have a drink. Water.
I don't drink. Can I stay on the bar?
No, you must come here now.
No.
Please.
No, I don't want to.
I'm not doing anything with you.
I I'm sorry. I cannot. No, yesterday was a kind of aggressive for me. I need to know a person to be touched.
I won't do a thing.
I don't want
to do a thing, please. I swear I won't. Just sit with me. Don't embarrass me in the hotel. I'm here all the time.
I know, but I don't want to.
Please sit there. Please. 1 minute.
No, I can't.
Go to the bathroom.
Please, I don't want to do something I don't want to.
Go to the bathroom. Come here. Listen to me.
I want to go downstairs.
I'm not going to do anything. You'll never see me again after this. Okay? That's it. If you embarrass me in this hotel.
I'm not embarrassing you. It's just that I don't feel comfortable.
I mean, don't have a fight with me in the hall. Please. I'm not going to do anything. I swear, my children. Please come in. On everything. I'm a famous guy.
I'm feeling very uncomfortable right now.
Please come in now. and 1 minute. And if you want to leave, when the guy comes with my
Why
jacket,
yesterday you touched my wrist?
No, please, I'm sorry. Just come on, I'm used to that.
But are you used to that?
Yes, come in.
No, but I'm not used to that.
I won't do it again. Come on, sit here. Sit here for a minute, please.
No, I don't want to.
If you do this now, you will embarrass you. No. I never call me again. I'm sorry. I promise you I won't do anything.
I know, but yesterday was too
The
much.
guy's coming. I will never do another thing to you. 5 minutes. Don't ruin your friendship with me for 5 minutes.
I know, but it's kind of like, it's too much for me. I can't.
Please, you're making a big scene here.
No,
Please.
but I want to leave.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
I don't think that Chesney did anything wrong. I mean, I've heard that. Y'all tear it apart if you want, but that just goes to show you that when she says, "Will you touch my breast?" She didn't say how it brushed it. What did he do? And then he's like, "Well, I'm used to that. Just please come in and don't embarrass me here."
Well, I'd just like to make one point. I know it's all everybody else's, and they can make their points on it. If the NYPD were doing a sting operation, however long ago this was, or however long this was in general, why is it not being used in an investigation? Because I presume it's not anything to do with what's happening now. It must have happened at least a year or two ago. Why is it not being put up into an investigation? And if it is put up in investigation, it's now null and void because now it's in the public space, which means it's useless. So it means absolutely nothing. So it must be absolutely nothing for it to be in a public space. It's just there as a propaganda tool.
Well, I'm not sure whether I've misunderstood something or whatever, but I heard somewhere that someone didn't cooperate with the police and that's why it was dropped. So I'm not sure whether that referred to this particular case, and the woman who you can hear in this didn't further cooperate with the police, and therefore they just decided, well, we'll just leave it. Yeah, I could be wrong on this.
I think they touched upon that in the article, and I forgot now the details behind that, but I don't know, man. I mean, there is, again, now these are just stories, but there was one particular actress that said that he forced himself upon her. Like he basically forced himself to suck her pussy and, you know, like eat her out and stuff like that. Again, I don't know what to make of it either, but.
He held her down and performed cunnilingus on someone is what the allegation is?
Yeah, that's from this one woman. There's another woman
that would be bad. I mean, if he actually held someone down. They were trying to get away saying, no, don't, stop. You know, that's bad in anybody's mind.
Yeah, that's rape. That's bad. That's rape.
Yeah. I mean, if somebody's there doing something to me and I'm saying, no, don't stop that, and I can't physically stop them, I'm being raped. So I would apply that to anyone else too.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad you guys would agree there then. And then supposedly there was another woman within that article, I forgot her name, that she said that when she went to go and meet him, and she insisted on meeting him, and I think this might very well be the same one that this happened to. Anyway, she insisted on meeting him with other people around in the daytime, you know, at his office, but he still nonetheless managed to get her to come into his office, just him and her. And at one point, he supposedly just whipped out his cock and made her suck his dick.
Well, that's a tougher one. Now, it's hard for me to buy the forced oral on a man because there's too many things you could do there to stop that. It really seems to be. They could say, again, I will go with common sense guy. He mentioned already, they could bring a charge of abusing his authority to gain sexual favor. But to say, oh, I've forced this girl to give well, unless you had a gun to her head or an ice pick to her neck or something like that, I wouldn't go that far. I would say this, boys, we could all agree on this. Man, if these girls are coming out saying this, imagine how much poontang Harvey got. This guy got laid. I mean, why is he harassing these girls is what I was thinking. Because, you know, if there's like...
Right now, as we speak, there must be Russian oil millionaires queuing up, trying to work out how to become Hollywood film producers.
Yeah. She just hitting them left and right.
Or what it would even be the point? I mean, these guys could afford hookers all the time. And the amount of money that these guys would be spending on dinners and stuff, just get a hooker, dude. Get two.
Well, not only that,
think about it this way. Hang on. Think about it this way. If you got the chance to mess around with that one girl that you really liked, that's Gwyneth Paltrow, for instance, or I don't know, Tomb Raider. I can't remember her bloody name. Angelina Jolie. Angelina Jolie. If you had a chance to mess, exactly. If you had a chance to mess around with any of them, would you? Would you not mind taking them to dinner and then going, "Come on, baby, you know you want to suck my dick." Yeah, of course you are. You're not going to pay a bloody hooker when you can have sex with somebody like Angelina Jolie.
Listen at your countryman there, Brett, getting all graphic with it.
Well,
Sorry.
you see, that's, as I say, that is where I become very, very skeptical, because I think that he would be in a position to exploit, if you will, any want-to-be actress who is desperate for a part in a movie. But when it comes to somebody who is a superstar, I think she has as much power as him, if not more so, because she has a much greater public platform than him. And therefore, I just don't see it. Especially, I don't see it if they then repeatedly still, once, even if it happened while they were becoming famous, if they later, when they were famous, were still doing repeated public appearances with him, then I think there is no credibility to the story whatsoever.
No, granted, I mean, I don't know, because that's where you start getting into that gray area of, because then anybody could be considered a rapist. I mean, if a husband kind of, pushes his wife to have sex one night, but she's kind of like, I don't know, you're like, come on, you fucking just bend over, then anything's going to be considered rape too.
That'd make a lot of us rapists, wouldn't it? It's like, come on, honey, just roll over and put the pillow. No, I shouldn't say that.
Let me just fucking lube my hand with some saliva here.
We'll get it over with really quick. Don't worry.
Oh, we're going really highbrow now, aren't we?
Yeah, sorry. I was just thinking about that.
Can I change the point?
What? Yes.
Can I change the point? Say, for instance, that we do a hypothetical for an instance. Say, for instance, we definitely know that these things happened. Can I just change the question? What do we think about all of the people that are on the left-hand side then that are not saying a word on this issue, that are not coming out and doing anything or supporting anybody, that are silent? And these are supposed to be people that are supposed to be protecting women in general.
Not like the Ben Affleck's Batman and fucking Matt Damon, who's whatever his thing is in fucking...
Matt Damon!
It come out that Matt Damon, good going. You beat me to it. But they came out that Afflecky, Mr. Wacky Tobacco Afflecky, that doesn't want no Islamophobia going down in his country. It makes him sick. Bill Maher did all this stinking Islamophobia. Come to find out, he got a little, touchy-feely. That's the creep hands, in case you're wondering. He got a little touchy-feely with some chick on TRL 2003. I think he rubbed the poon. He got right. I'm sorry, it really is lowbrow of me to be like this. But he sexually assaulted a chick. He pulled an old grab him by the what. Without.
But that's the other thing. I mean, the amount of women that probably throw themselves at these guys and then they sort of pull away. That's another thing you also have to be very careful. I mean, I don't know if there's ever going to be a way of clearly defining rape. Like, at what point is it rape? What point is it not? When
the dick enters the pussy when it's not consented, rape is quite easy to define.
No, but
man, if somebody held me down and I'm trying to get away and they put their tongue in my ear and I'm going, let me go, and I can't physically get away from them, and they hold me down on the ground and I'm going to make it clear, stick their tongue in my ear. That's rape.
But no, it's not. It's not rape. No, it's not.
It would be to me.
It would be to you. It would be to you. It would be to you, but it's sexual assault. It's not rape. Rape is penetration of a penis into a vagina, and sodomy is into the other one.
Rape forced any kind of penetration. Could be digital. Anyway, man, where the hell are we going, Britt? What happened? Wasn't the last stream about penises?
We seem to be veering dangerously here, don't we?
We're careening off the road. We're fucking flying off the cliff right now. No, look, what I was going to say really quick is, with the rape allegations of this one porn star guy, what's his name, James Dean, and these women in pornography. I mean, come on. Really? The guy is raping you because when the guy, I don't know, when you called out the safe word. He fucking thrusted you 5 more times or some shit like that.
Yeah, that still counts. That still counts.
It really, so it still counts, even though you have contractually, how do you call it, agreed to spread your legs.
But before you continue, I'll let you carry on. Before you continue, you have contractually agreed that you're going to be doing this sexual act, but you've also contractually agreed that when the safe word is produced, that the sexual act no longer continues. Therefore,
but 5 more thrusts, that could just be a, it's in the middle of a coitus, man. You can't. There's got to be a thrust vector maximum. In other words,
if the contract would be breached. It doesn't matter. The contract would be breached.
I think more than 12 thrusts is rape. Less than 12 or less.
Ogre. You were just literally a minute ago. Saying that if somebody sticks a tongue in my ear, that's rape.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I know.
Okay, gentlemen, time out, please. I think really, much as this, of course, is entertaining, I really think we seem to be going down the rabbit hole here.
Wow's
you see, they keep misleading me too, Brett.
I really think it may be worth moving on.
Yeah, let's move on.
So we have got another subject up here, and that is various gentlemen online. I think H3 Productions, Philip DeFranco, and Boogie2988 have made videos about, well, how shall we put it, a double standard being used when it comes to the adpocalypse.
Yep.
That is, who is being demonetized and who isn't. So I don't know which one of you would like to take it from here and do a bit of explaining, and then we see where we go.
Well, I can say I'm trying to turn on the super chat, but it keeps on monetizing the videos. And the last video we did is monetized. I don't know what that means. I don't think it's going to make a penny in 10 years, but it's not done the way I want. But looking back, the only time anything we've done together has been demonetized is when it's I put music in there, shouldn't be in there. That's it. So I can't really speak to it, Brett.
I mean,
just really quick.
Let me not say.
Hammer, man, because that's what I'm saying. I can't really speak to it, Nazi. If you can, tell us.
No, I'm not up to date on that one with Philip DeFranco. Now even he's getting completely demonetized for every single one of his videos or something? Or
well, they have basically they have pointed out that they are being hit quite heavily when it comes to demonetization, whereas they have seen sort of celebrities, people like Jimmy Kimmel, for example, touch on pretty much exactly the same subjects that they were talking about in a video which was demonetized. And yet Kimmel touches on the video, and there are advertisements splurged over it all the time.
Oh, that one was to do with YouTube's policy was that they weren't allowed to make any money for charity or natural disaster events. And Jimmy Kimmel did exactly the same, trying to make money for a natural disaster event. And that was the comparison, that they couldn't do it for charity, but Jimmy Kimmel could.
Well, I think there was...
I'm going to have to dip out for just one moment, okay? Because I have some movers that I have to deal with.
No worries.
There is also I'm trying to Neistat, is it? I think he's a big YouTuber, and he actually offered to do a video in which all the revenue from the advertisements for that video would go to charity to the Las Vegas victims, and they basically demonetized it.
Jeez.
And the reason for demonetizing it was because YouTube didn't want to see advertisements or anything that made money from a tragedy.
Yes.
Meanwhile, of course,
there
was CNN clips online that basically were sponsored by Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, and just about anybody else. These companies then, basically this was on television, but these were the same companies who were telling YouTube that they didn't want such associations online. So there seems to be a very, very strong level of a double standard here, both by YouTube and by the companies who are doing the sponsoring.
Well,
So-
by definition, as you just literally said, by definition, for one person, they said, no, it is our policy that we will not let anybody make any money for any natural disasters or any national tragedies that have happened. Fair enough, that's fine. But then you let somebody like Jeremy Kimmel, Tonight Show, all of them type of people make money on your policy that you're supposed to be enacting, and then you can see the double standards that then interlope into play.
They
I mean, there
agree.
was also, yeah, I mean, there's I think there is also a wonderful one that, was it Count Dankula that pointed that out? I'm not sure. That nowadays, apparently, you can only be verified on YouTube, I believe, if you've got 100,000 followers or more.
Nice.
Again, this is one of their policies. And funnily enough, their CEO has only got something like 6,000 followers, and she's verified.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, well, man.
Yeah.
Double standard.
Yeah, so basically there does seem to be strange double standards afoot. I mean, when it comes to the dark arts of YouTube, there seems to be very strange things going on. Boogie, in his clip, basically says that he is beginning to worry with all the things that are going on in YouTube, with the constant changing of the algorithm, with the constant deterring of people who are saying the wrong thing.
Damn,
he's worried. He pretty much said straight out that he is worried about the smaller users. That basically he says there are now some big users who have established themselves, you know, people like himself. But he didn't have to jump through the number of hoops in order to get as big as he is. That now everybody is suddenly expected to do in order to, in any way, try and catch up with him. And so once I think we all agree, once you are of a certain size on YouTube, you become a kind of colossus. It's almost impossible for you to kind of shrink down to a normal size again. But the struggle for all sorts of people in various, it's not just our line of business, in just about any area of YouTube, the struggle to try and get yourself noticed, the struggle to try and get up that greasy pole, given that YouTube are making it that difficult, it now really does seem to be that, it is kind of worth the thought of, can you actually make it against this sort of opposition? Because in this case, it's not the viewers, it's the actual platform that seems to be operating against you. And if you can't make any money, you can't make any money to reinvest into making a better product. And of course, that's exactly how all the others got to where they eventually were. I mean, quite a few of them have got entire teams that work for them, and that's the only reason why they are capable of turning out that much product that frequently. Had they not been able to grow into that position, then they wouldn't be where they are today. And it almost appears now as if the ladder has been pulled up. And, he kind of, Boogie kind of pointed to, what the future may hold, that it may then just become about cat videos, or he even mentioned one particular absolutely obnoxious self-appointed white rapper who films himself a lot living in a posh neighborhood, annoying the neighbors. I forget his name. Sorry?
Eminem?
Yeah, close to that. Some chap who now has, I think, a few million followers and he's just irritating and annoying. But yes, it's that sort of product that is in no way, it's in no way controversial. It may be irritating and annoying, and one may play at being controversial, but one makes sure that one doesn't ever actually say anything that could be truly controversial. And that seems to be the kind of content that seems to now be encouraged. So basically, just make brainless stuff, preferably with cats or white rappers.
Oh,
well, there's still a group of people there that want a certain thing, and I just want to, let's not forget this. There was a time where everybody thought that a little company called HBO was out of their mind, TNT and USA, and what were all these things going to do? You got to pay to get something to come in your house and watch TV. Boomed, and you paid. I mean, especially when you're talking about HBO, Showtime. There's no commercials on that. You actually pay above and beyond your cable bill for these services. At this point, I think there's no choice but for people that are doing it as a living and providing a service, but to do the same thing, to turn to the people that are enjoying it and saying, well, if it's viable, if it is viable, if I'm viable, you know, pay for your entertainment. And I mean, that sucks. I really think that it's terrible of YouTube, but that's who should take the blame. That's who people should write letters to. Because a lot of people, I mean, let's face it, a lot of folks there's nothing they can do. They couldn't help if they wanted to. A lot of people look at it as whatever else, and so there's always that. But I think that's the next wave, and I just like people underestimated cable. I think people are underestimating the crowds that are out there and how determined they are to get the kind of entertainment they've grown accustomed to.
I think you're definitely right there. But I think one of the great dangers we're looking at is, I think this might have been H3H3, or it could have been Boogie, I'm not sure, but one of them basically said that from dipping their toe in the water, what they the sense they get is that quite a lot of people who are serious about making running their channels, quite a lot of those people pretty much may move away by next year. That basically they're kind of hanging on until Christmas, and then after that they may just basically give up and walk away. And what the result could just be is a seriously impoverished YouTube.
Hey, give me a chance though.
But I mean, you know what I mean? It in a way, we require all those voices to be out there, because it is precisely the diversity, and in this case, a true diversity, not a diversity of pigmentation and ethnicity, but a diversity of ideas, a diversity of perspectives, of angles. It's that diversity that is out there on YouTube that attracts so many people. But if a great many of the people who they're not, the people who may walk away are those people who are not those who have already made it, but those who are no longer in our area. That basically they have grown beyond us, but they simply cannot reach that stage where it's kind of worth their while, if you know what I mean. And they may well be the ones who eventually walk away. So you would effectively lose all that area of sort of medium-sized channels, perhaps in the few hundreds of thousands. That basically they are already the ones who are quite professional at their approach. They've learned, they've paid their dues, they've learned their craft, they're doing things properly, and sort of halfway up the ladder, they've just suddenly had it, all pulled from under them, because it's just not possible for them to sustain it, given that they're just not making any money. Plus, and I think we more than likely all agree on this, there is more than likely some suppression strategy going on within some of the algorithm.
It is
in order
funny.
to try and keep some channels down.
It is funny that you say that. I've been surfing the chat, so to speak, and somebody called Binary Surfer has been trying to get in touch with Ogre, saying that Project Veritas did a exposure video on media, and the exposure they did extremely damning for YouTube, shows the algorithm is routinely manipulated by staff for direct personal political reasons, and that's from Project Veritas, and they did a video on it apparently.
Sorry, yeah, I'm just seeing that. No, I've been kicked back listening, not really looking. Sorry about that, folks. I just looked and seen Zero was in here. But of course, they've been doing this, man. I mean, people keep showing it. Different people keep showing what they're doing. And we've had the idea, the British and I have talked about this for months now. and how we figure, well, you got to hit the algorithm just right, and how they may be personalizing it. And it's all the same thing.
Well, I mean, you know,
ramping
you know,
it up.
from my own experience, what I seem to the impression I'm getting is previously, you know, if you watch those kind of clips that some people have put up, kind of, you know, various people who are some sort of experts in how to play the algorithm and whatever. People who have spoken at various YouTube seminars into how to try and grow your channel and such things. They tend to sort of say, you know, if you once in a while, it doesn't have to be routinely, if you once in a while kind of create something that jumps beyond your normal level of viewers. So if you have a clip that is a sudden hit, if you within the space of about 2 or 3 months have another one like that, it's things like that that the algorithm responds to. So if you kind of break the mold and you're suddenly more successful than the channel expects you to be because a particular clip just chimes, if you do things like that, then strictly speaking, the algorithm should promote you because it's beginning to realize that you're picking up, that you're changing something, that you're somehow growing beyond your normal viewership. But what I've realized is when I tend to have a big clip, then a few days later, some of the clips that I put out, you know, something like the week that was, suddenly actually gets fewer views than it normally would. So it's not as if it's got more or it hasn't been promoted. It almost seems as if someone has suddenly stood on the brake. And that's where you kind of get the feeling as if there is something in the algorithm. Again, this might be tinfoil hat. I might be, completely losing it. But you get the impression as if, just like Razorfist said, there is some sort of blacklist and that the algorithm works differently for those channels. And it then basically tries to counteract those channels from growing. And I could well imagine that that might be the case.
I know, I completely agree with you. It's like what Boogie said with his Francis videos. He was saying that it wasn't the content of the Francis video that was doing it. The algorithm was picking up particular words. That sometimes it was rage, sometimes it was just different words that was being picked up either in the actual tags underneath or in the actual title. And it just goes to show you that the algorithm just doesn't decide who is actually going to discriminate, because it's just designed to pick up on different words. You can't really say that Boogie is a shitlord. You just can't. Yes. You just can't say that. There's just no way in hell that anybody could say that Boogie is an edgelord.
It's crazy.
Sorry?
His character Francis gets crazy. I mean, says some crazy shit.
Yes, but what
he's a great guy.
Yes, he is very much the exception, and YouTube will full well know about that. But it just strikes me that there is something strange going on. I mean, you remember when Razorfist was on last time, and he basically gave us an example of that video that he had made, where he had just effectively just blahed for about 5 minutes. There wasn't any content in the video. He was just talking nonsense. And there wasn't really any foul language. There wasn't any controversial subjects touched upon. There was nothing in the video. It was just him randomly talking for 3 or 4 minutes. And then he uploaded it, and no sooner was it uploaded, it was demonetized. And that's when he said, as far as he's concerned, this is a blacklist. Because
but I wonder also,
the algorithm could not have detected anything. So please go ahead, Nachi.
No, I was just going to say, because I remember seeing that video also with the thing of the blah, blah, blah. Who knows if maybe that in itself, maybe the algorithm just thought to itself, well, there's no content here worth being advertiser friendly, so we're going to, drop it. But I think the bigger picture, at least for me, and you guys can completely disagree, but man, that's the problem that happens when people end up living on something they really can't control. YouTube is no YouTuber's company. It's sad to say, dude, but it really is a private company owned by Google, which is really owned by Alphabet. And I with all the talk of like, oh my God, I can't believe that they're doing this. They still allow people to upload videos. You could still make money via Patreon. You could still shamelessly, hawk your wares and redirect people elsewhere. You could completely disparage and shit all over Larry Page and Sergey Brin and that fucking the CEO woman who's now fucking making feminist claims that she's been whatever talked over at meetings and stuff like that. I don't see this Orwellian nightmare. I really don't think. And if anything, I'm amazed that YouTube has allowed people to make that much money from it. I think if anything, YouTube is probably trying to figure out how the hell somewhat profitable, and this is probably their way of just being like raking back some profits because they've been hemorrhaging money since I think day one. But that's where
has anyone heard of the fact that is it Bezos, basically the Amazon man, has apparently been indicating that he may be interested in starting a YouTube rival. Now, if that were to happen, then everybody already predicts that would more than likely be even more politically correct than YouTube. But
definitely,
if that were to happen and a more politically correct rival to YouTube would come along, then perhaps suddenly the advantage of being less politically correct might begin to dawn on YouTube. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I would say that I've got 2 points on this. I would say to your actual point that if Amazon were to make a comparison to YouTube, that most of the people that we would do, say, videos, or what I would do videos on, or what other people would do videos on, the social justice and things like that, the silly videos that you sometimes get on YouTube, if they move across to Amazon, you wouldn't be able to get the catch audience that you want, because you wouldn't be able to go across to them and post a video and vice versa, because the platforms wouldn't be compatible for a start, which means it'd be like trying to play a PlayStation with an Xbox. You just wouldn't be able to. You just wouldn't be allowed to. The other point I wanted to make, I think what Nachi was saying before about that YouTube doesn't make money and things like that is a fair point to make. But I would say that I personally, in my experience, have noticed that when people like the Tonight Show decided to start coming onto YouTube and making their own channels, and all these big superstars in general, like big TV programs and stuff like that, started making their YouTube channels in general, it seems to me that that's when the money situation started to go down to make room for mainstream media, because they knew from PewDiePie and things like that that the main people that were getting their sources were on YouTube. So they had to adapt. So mainstream media and mainstream in general had to come onto platforms like YouTube to adapt and get more views. And I think that's when it all changed.
Well, I'm sure that has something to do with it too. But the other thing that I always found amazingly almost generous is the fact that you can take a video from Jimmy Kimmel and shit all over it. Granted, it might be demonetized, but the fact that they allow you to do that and they don't take down the video, and you don't have a lawyer, contacting you to cease and desist. I think that's a good thing, dude. I get why so many.
That is more to do with the law and fair usage rather than with YouTube or Jimmy Kimmel being particularly kind.
Exactly. That's exactly the point that I was literally about to make. It's the point that it's only done by fair use. If fair use wasn't covered by using it to be able to critique somebody or to provide educational purposes, then we wouldn't be able to do any of that straight away. And we would, like Sargon and things like that have these lawsuits that go against them, like H3, that would have the lawsuits where they've gone to court and things like that, or going. You have all of this that are going on at this moment in time, but that's only because they've broken the fair use. If it, or maybe, or may not have done, but it's only because the law's in place. If you didn't have the law in place, YouTube would absolutely shit all over you. YouTube wouldn't care about little people when you've got somebody who's got 10 million views, 10 million people that subscribe to them all the time watching them. They're always going to go for the people that make the most money rather than a little person.
But I think then in that case, if it weren't for that, yeah, maybe YouTube would have already died out. And because I always thought that the whole point of YouTube in the beginning was just for people to upload their own personal videos, kind of like what they're doing with Facebook, or what Facebook has done for quite some time, which is just allowing people to upload videos really easy, you know? And so that way people come and use the platform, which is what now Facebook is trying to sort of be like YouTube. And it's funny because at this place that I'm working at, which is an advertising agency, the other day we had a meeting and they were trying to, like, you know, teach us how YouTube works and how, you know, and I kept quiet. I wasn't like, hey, I got a YouTube channel you should all check out. I fucking stayed shut, you know, which is fine if they did. But the point was, it was interesting, like the whole PowerPoint presentation they were showing us and shit about how now Facebook is trying to drive a lot of the traffic away from YouTube, because now Facebook is trying to also do live streaming, and they were like, oh, and it's a really big, you know, it's great because you can do it for 4 hours nonstop. And I was like, wow. So that, I thought that was quite interesting. But Facebook is trying to do it in such a way, like, oh, that was the whole point of the meeting. The meeting was because what they try to do is they try to make these little commercials that we work on go viral. And so, you know, the whole thing was, oh, how do we do this on YouTube and blah, blah, blah. But they were talking about that don't post any more links from YouTube into Facebook. Try to upload the videos directly on Facebook, because Facebook is consciously pushing away the traffic from YouTube. What I did find interesting is that these people don't give a rat's ass about free speech or anything. They're just like, where's the money? And like there was no debate about like, oh my God, well, you know, that kind of affects, you know, what we could say. No, they were like, okay, so if that's how we're going to make the money, then. So I did find that interesting how now Facebook is trying to take over YouTube. You know, just to give you guys a heads up. I don't know if that's going to be the next trend. But
the thing is, with what you say, Facebook will never take over YouTube for one particular reason. You can't become an avatar. And that way, what I mean is you cannot hide behind an avatar.
Anonymous, right?
Exactly. You have to use your real name and everything else like that. Even if it's a page that you manage, if you're going to do a live video, it would be through your actual name and address.
They just kicked me off of Facebook. They just kicked me off Facebook. They insisted that I send them a photo ID. And I told them the whole way along, it's like, this is not me. This is an account that I have because I want to have anonymity. They kind of never addressed that. They just kept saying, well, if you would fax us the name, same name I use here, JT. And it's just a B. Anyway, that's so wrong. Why are they forcing you to use your real? What if you were in witness protection? What if somebody was trying to kill you? What if you had a, you know, what if any of these things? Why do they have to have who you are? It's part of it, man. The CIA runs that stuff. Zuckerberg, he just, you know, I don't know if he hit the gravy train. I think they picked him out and it was like, look, we got this thing. We're going to make you a billionaire, but you have to be a lefty nutcase and tell everybody what to do and begin to mind control. Take over the world. I don't think it works that way. I can walk. Oh, sorry.
Here he goes again.
No, I think I was reading a really good book, which I think is what the movie, the one that they did on Facebook was partially based on. But of course, in the book, they get into so many more details. First of all, for sure, Mark Zuckerberg is a genius. That guy, when you read about like the moves that he was making at such a young age, dude, this guy, early 20s at best, and he was already managing millions of dollars and calling the shots on investors. And like when they were pushing him to go public, he was like, nah. I find that very impressive. I would have been like, no problem. Here, fucking give me, which is why I'm where I'm at and he's where he's at. So that's number one. I don't think it's that nefarious. I think what's happened is that there's been a lot of these, especially with the live streaming of crimes and rapes and all that shit. I think when certain companies, they pass a certain, let's just say a threshold of how much money they're earning, especially when they go public and all that, you got the government up your ass for sure. And I think they want to stay put. Like, I think someone like Mark Zuckerberg is aware of how many thousands of employees he's got, at least hundreds of them. And I think he's got somewhat of a conscience, and he's like, okay, let me play ball with the government here. And I think someone like him, there's only one thing that guy cares about: being in control of his company insofar as much as he can, and being a fucking billionaire.
You think he has the conscience?
I think it's for his friends and family, I'm sure. You know, okay. I wouldn't put that guy on par with you know who, or Saddam Hussein, or Vladimir Putin.
I just always go back to that picture of him he's in a big auditorium. They just came out with the virtual reality thing, and he's facing the crowd, and the crowd's all looking at him with these things on. And they're all looking the same way and in the same body posture because they're seeing the same thing and reacting to it. And he's giving this kind of like he's just made this gesture. And I'm going to tell you, man, my humble opinion was, oh, yeah, I was kind of breaking off. And somebody mentioned tinfoil hat. So, I mean, yes, not only is the government involved in Facebook, but I have a difficult time believing that Zuckerberg just came up with this on his own. I highly doubt he has much of a conscience. I'm not sure you can become a billionaire like Donald Trump and have a conscience. I think, as it was mentioned before, I think you have to be shallow to a certain extent, and you have to go and do the cremation of care and you know, out the redwood forests at Bohemian Grove. You have to do those things so that you can get through life and you can justify the evil, horrible things you know are going on and that you're a part of, like Zuckerberg.
Well, or like General Mattis. I heard you talking about him on your last live stream, which was really impressive. I didn't realize that guy had no wife and no girlfriend and no hobbies. He's just military, and he fucking kill who you gotta kill. It's like kind of like do no harm but take no shit to the point of fucking massacring fucking people if necessary. You know, I think, again, I think it comes back to psychology. And I thought you mentioned, Ogre, that you studied psychology and stuff. It's important to understand we're not all created equal. And someone like Zuckerberg, I'm not trying to put that guy above myself or anything like that. But I have no problem admitting when someone is a hyper genius and they're truly a 1 billion, among our species. And I think that's just how they operate. You know what I mean? And in his case, I don't see the evil. I see shameless hypocrisy and opportunism, but not evil to the point. Like evil, I would say, is, look, Idi Amin. Have you guys ever read up on what that guy did?
Yeah, I'm aware of who he is.
The fuck?
Uganda, is that correct?
Huh?
Was it Uganda? Where was that?
Uganda. And then for Saudi Arabia to take that guy in afterwards and just let him, live his final days driving around in a Rolls Royce, that's evil. That is evil, and I think it's important to distinguish that. And
rolling around and giving speeches and saying that if you do your work with vaccines very well and very carefully and you're successful, that you can bring the number of people on Earth down significantly in the next 10 years. Bill Gates said that time and again, too, because it was said, like when it first said it, it was like, oh, it was a slip. And then you realize they have 7 or 8 different times. Said that at a TED Talk. There's 7 or 8 different occasions where he said it where you could see, no, it's built into his speech. It's part of the speech that he wrote you. He wants to bring humanity's numbers down, and one of the ways they do it is with vaccines. I mean, that's his words, not mine. And so there's a tinfoil hat for you. What were we even talking about? Oh, yeah, that YouTube doesn't want us to have a good time, or definitely don't want us to talk about this stuff.
I mean, the link to the vaccines was obvious, Ogre, so thanks for that.
I wasn't vaccinated. My mom was pretty serious way back when in 74 is when I was born, but I was given one vaccination, and it was polio. I had a sugar cube. My mom wanted me to have that too at the time, but that was it. All of the other stuff, she was a nurse, and she had ways around it where everybody had to go, and they had to have this booster and this thing and that thing, and I believe she's always been aware of that Gardasil, which is a mercury-based preservative. Man, you know, they're shooting mercury into young kids. That's not a good idea. Maybe it causes autism. They say there may be a correlation. What's that, Nazi?
No, let me ask you. Wait a second. Let me get this straight. Are you saying that Bill Gates slipped up on admitting that they're trying to control the global population?
No, I don't think he slipped up. I think he was saying that that's what he was doing, and then when people started pointing to it in big ways, and you can find many people that have done videos and talked about it, then he like broke back the rhetoric on just coming out and saying, if we continue, because he's talking about population, and he said, oh, this is the numbers, and this is the quote, paraphrasing, but it's very, 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 very close to word for word. If we continue, so the context is he just talked about how the population on Earth is booming and getting huge, and this is the phrase. If we do our work with vaccines correctly, we can bring this number drastically down over the next 10 years. You know, and like I said, it's not a slip, because he said that time and time again. There's a TED talk where he says it. I mean, you can go to other people too, like Ted Turner. He's not a big one, man. These people, and I don't know about Zuckerberg. I know that he's in with this crew, but again, I don't want to say, because guilt by association. I don't like that. I'm not in for that. You're out with your buddies one night, somebody murders somebody, and then everybody in the car gets charged with murder. Boss. One person dead, one pistol, only one person can be charged with murder. You're only an accessory if you were helping guide the bullet or sight the gun. You know what I mean? I didn't know all that. Everybody gets charged. So, so I don't have a lot of evidence with Zuckerberg. But with the other two that I just named, Ted Turner, he's like all for single child laws. I mean, it can go on and on and on and on and on. This all came about because we don't want to be controlled. It makes me think about all this stuff. I would like to see folks that are working hard and getting a good amount of views be able to flip a switch, which means that you can wave in 5 seconds if you want to go on. And you've seen the little piece of the commercial. They do what they want to do to you mentally in the first 5 seconds of the damn commercial anyway. They already got you. And so then you move on, you watch the whatever. I mean, come on, let those people make money, especially when they disagree with you. It'll show character in what you believe. That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, if they can, I don't know. I would love to do a little more research and find out the real numbers. I suspect that part of the problem with YouTube is that they're just probably trying to stay afloat, and they're probably trying to rein in the profits, and it's probably not good PR for them to say, hey, listen, we're fucking hemorrhaging way too much money. We're going to have to cut back on what we pay people out. I get the feeling. That's just, you know, it's a hunch.
I'd kind of disagree with that, because if you've got a certain amount of people that are paying for the AdSense and they've got the monetization on the videos, then you've got a company that's paying YouTube money anyway, and obviously paying you a percentage. So you've got paying you a percentage and paying YouTube a percentage, blah, blah, blah. For that point, you've also got independent advertisers that are just coming in and going on the big YouTube channels as well, that are just paying to be advertisers on the big YouTube channels. So there's lots of money where you can just there's lots of ways that you can just make money off of that. A good business model isn't a case of necessarily, oh, we're hemorrhaging and we're taking this and we're taking that. Because at the end of the day, you want more people to make more content, because the more content that you make, or they make, then you've got more places to put the advertising. It's just, that's just simple business sense.
No, granted, but chances, I don't know. Again, I have no idea what their overhead is. I don't know. That's where, you know, that's just my theory. It's like the old saying goes, don't attribute to malice what could be explained by incompetence or stupidity. And that's the thing. I think that I don't think it's so much malice behind YouTube, even though clearly with James Damore's memo, Google has been infected with, I'm sure, people like Arianna Huffington sitting on their board of directors, no doubt about it.
I understand what you mean with the malice. Don't attribute to malice what could be incompetence or anything else. But I think you can begin to attribute malice when you have these examples like with Jimmy Kimmel. So
he's being monetized, and
if advertising revenue goes down for YouTube, say by 20%, and therefore they just reduce what they pay out to everybody by 20%, then that's fine, because that's fair. But what has happened here is that a huge sway of small channels seem to have just been reduced down to 0. And yet some of the celebrity accounts, or some of the accounts that produce material of which YouTube politically approves, they are still where they were before. So it's that which seems to it's that which seems to grate. The fact that it isn't as if a reduction of income to YouTube has meant that a reduction of advertising income is therefore passed on to everybody else. It seems to be that they're singling out people to receive nothing, who basically put out material of which they don't approve.
Which, by the way, does anybody know the Young Turds, they're still making money off this? Because they must be, because I think the other day I saw through somebody else's videos.
Well, when Ben Shapiro was debating Genk, when he was debating him, he actually was saying that the Young Turks were hemorrhaging money at this point in time, and they were hemorrhaging subscribers. And Cenk didn't refute that at all. He didn't come back at that at all. So one would presume that has to be on a true point.
Well, yes, but that then begs the question, were they hemorrhaging money because they were hemorrhaging subscribers? Because if they're hemorrhaging subscribers because people just don't like their content anymore, then obviously they will hemorrhage money. But if they're actually, if they've got a subscriber base, but they're suddenly earning a lot less money because they're suddenly cut off from the advertisements, that's a different issue. And I think that's the question, as in, has the Young Turks been hit by the adpocalypse in the same way as everybody else has? Because, of course, they are putting out an advertising narrative which is much more approved by YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, you could do something. The thing is, sorry, I don't mean to cut anybody off. The thing is, you could quite easily do the point of what I know everybody's going to say, oh, you're bringing up Alex Jones, but Alex Jones makes his own advertisement in his own videos. And if you're big enough, you can do that. But after a certain point, you can quite easily do that and make your own deals and reach out to people in general and just try to do localizations and local deals and whatever. You can do that yourself and put that into the video, and every time it gets, you can set up a business contract with it and do it like that. So there are ways around the apocalypse. But your point with the Young Turks, no, it was what you said. It was the subscriber base going down, meaning that the AdSense would go down because of the subscribers going down, not because of the apocalypse.
Yeah, because there's everything that they have, as far as I know, is they've not been demonetized. You look at their stuff; they've got very provocative thumbnails. They have very provocative topics, both sexualized and politicized, provocative. I mean, in every way you can think of. Their topics are touchy. They cover everything. I mean, you get somebody else, same topic, just different thoughts on the topic, demonetized. Steven Crowder, he ain't got no monetized. You got to buy some stupid mug, I guess, to keep him in dog food or whatever it is that he needs.
But I think he's got backers, because I heard him talk about like meeting with their investors, and like their conservative backers and stuff like that. That's it talks about having researchers, like he's got on staff. Like, I mean, Steven Crowder is not a guy operating from his fucking, basement. He's clearly, got people, back.
But Young Turks aren't either.
Oh, no, for sure. I think they're supported by Al Jazeera, which is owned by the Qatar family, or the ruling family of Qatar and shit like that. So yeah, for sure. And the other day I heard Anna Kasparian through somebody else's video, because like I said, I refuse to give them any views. She was bitching. Well, she was, ranting about YouTubers who complain that they're being demonetized for saying racist shit. And then you're just like, oh my God. So in other words, they have probably worked something out again with YouTube, because I have seen the pictures of Cenk with the CEO of YouTube, with that woman. And I think they've probably worked something out. They've definitely.
They wouldn't be talking about people being demonetized for saying racist stuff if they themselves would be demonetized and not saying racist stuff. So they basically wouldn't equate being demonetized with being racist if they themselves would be being demonetized. So I think we can assume quite fairly that they're not being demonetized. Otherwise, they wouldn't say such a thing.
No, right.
Yeah.
That's where it's scary, actually, a little bit, because the narratives that these fucking people are pushing, man, they are so toxic for society that, yeah.
Yeah, but I think their views should be out there. There's people like Conscious Caracal. He has the subreddit page TYT Sucks. Last I knew, they're 52% the size of the actual TYT subreddit. And so go by and check him out there at the TYT Sucks. And he's an aggregate of all things anti-TYT. He's got like 4 or 5 of my videos up there from the old days. And
I was wondering, given that we seem to have kind of beaten the YouTube story to death a bit by now, common sense. Do you want to go on with your British story that you had?
Yeah, there you go.
I can do indeed. What we're going to be doing is going on to government faces challenge over gender-neutral passports.
Oh, mercy.
Yeah. We've got a campaigner has been given permission to bring a High Court challenge against the government over gender-neutral passports. Christy Ellen Kane was born female but identifies as non-gendered and says it is inappropriate that the UK's passport application process requires people to specify whether they're male or female, because you either have a dick or you don't. It's that simple.
Because passport control doesn't really need to know whether they need to look out for a male or a female. Yes.
Yeah. There's a person running. What do they look like? Well, I'm not sure if it was a man or a female because it could be gender neutral.
That's crazy. You know what? In California over here now, they've done, I think, what they've done over in Canada, where it's you could actually get a year in jail if you use the wrong gender pronoun.
Yeah.
Fucking insane.
Yeah, in California, it's only taking care of elderly if you misgender, and I'm still there. They got that passed, huh? That's terrible.
They did, yeah. They did 2 days ago. While the fires were going on as well.
That's just wonderful that they did that. No, that's horrible.
Well, by getting it onto the statute books, they're basically setting a legislative precedent. So then it's much easier to pass other laws.
Yeah, exactly. Several other countries allow genderless people to answer X for unspecified on travel documents and birth certificates. Elaine Kane has previously given evidence to Parliament on transgender equality and first contacted the UK Passport Office about the issues of gender-neutral passports in guess what date?
Go ahead.
1995. So it was definitely a while ago.
Wow. I didn't even know that was an issue back then.
Apparently it was. To this person it was. Permission to bring a judicial review of the issue was granted at a hearing in London on Wednesday. On hearing the case, Mr. Justice Gilbert said he was satisfied as the case passes the test for the grant of permission and is arguable, apparently. Leave it, Ellen Christie said after the hearing. It was really good news and I'm really pleased, but the work isn't over yet. There's much work to be done. A full hearing of the challenge will now be heard. Although a date has not yet been announced, in September, Canada became the 10th country to offer its citizens the option to use gender-neutral travel documents. It follows Australia, Denmark, Germany, Malta, New Zealand, surprisingly Pakistan, India, and Nepal, who already had a third category. I'm very, very surprised that Pakistan have done that.
I just
I'm not-
can't believe it.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
You see, for example, Iran was one of the countries that pioneered transgender operations. And in that regard, what it is a way of you're not gay, you're transgender.
Yeah, I completely missed that. When I was thinking that, I completely
you
missed.
just basically move someone onto the transgender scale, and like that, Iran has no homosexual problem.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think it's more than likely a similar motivation that's going on with Pakistan.
Yeah, makes sense.
Whenever one of those countries suddenly turns up among the arch liberals, usually it's because there's an agenda.
Like most things, there's always an agenda.
What?
Sorry, I was about to say, I wonder what Mohammed, peace be upon him, would have to fucking say about that. But whatever.
Probably not. He's probably too busy with his 9-year-old wife.
She has 6. She was 6.
Actually,
Aisha was 6 when they got married. 9 when he actually.
I'm actually
That's
quite
what I said.
convinced. I'm actually quite convinced that if Muhammad and whatever, if they all existed, then more than likely Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Moses, and whatever, they're all sitting on a cloud up there, looking down, going, "People, this is not what we meant."
Oh yeah, no. Look, I think they're all sitting on a cloud up there, looking down and going, "We really fucked them up, didn't we?"
Yeah, that kind of makes a little bit more sense. Definitely.
I thought Nachi would appreciate that.
Yeah, with kind of, Buddha's the one that gets up and dusts himself down and looks at the others and go, "Anyone for tennis?"
Nachi has no patience or tolerance for anything that has religiosity in it whatsoever, be it pagan or Christian. That's what I do appreciate about it. It's not like he's not one of these people. It's like, do you believe in God? No. Do you believe in the devil? Yeah. Black magic? Yeah. But that's crazy. I mean, but he's like, no, I don't believe in witchcraft or life after death or none of that stuff.
Yeah, because they're all demonstrably false. There's zero evidence for any of those claims. I would say, though, in talking about the fucking great prophets up in the clouds, no, I think that Muhammad would be like, everything is going as planned. I think he'll be like, yes, this is
Very
what
likely. Very likely on that.
Almost there. We're almost there.
Well,
shall I move on to this other British story? This has basically been going on for weeks now. It's just that basically, once again, I think it was because Trudeau is in America, and it's hit the headlines again. And that is that there's effectively a Canadian aircraft company called Bombardier. And the reason, of course, this affects Britain to a great degree is because Bombardier owns Shorts, which is an aircraft company situated in Northern Ireland. I think it's in Belfast. They built the famous short Sterling bomber during the Second World War. But what's happening now is that Bombardier effectively put in for a contract for one of the big American airlines. It could have been Delta. I'm not sure. I might be completely misremembering. Interestingly, Boeing didn't even bid for the contract. Now, as it was, Bombardier then won the contract. And this is quite a large contract. So this is dozens of airplanes. So as you can imagine, if you win a contract like that, you then have to put quite a bit of money into your production line in order to be able to produce that many planes, because you don't know whether you're going to get the contract or not. So it appears that Boeing waited for this to happen. And then suddenly out of the blue, even though they weren't a party involved in the bidding process, they then used their lobbying power with the US government and said, oh, Bombardier, they've received some subsidy money. So they should be subject to tariffs. So the US government, this is all still provisional, this can still be overturned. They then slapped punitive tariffs, first of 220% onto those aeroplanes. So now, I mean, consider this basically means
220%.
Yes, import tariff for those planes to be sold to an American company.
So in other words, if the plane cost $1, it would actually cost $3. Is that what you're talking about?
$3.20, yes.
Oh my
Then,
gracious.
a week later, they then added another 80%, which basically means that by now the import duty is 300%. Now, the Canadian government is very angry about this. The British government is also up in arms about this. Now, in this case, it has the potential to bring down the British government because, of course, the British government lost its majority in the House of Commons in the general election. They are now dependent on the DUP. That's the Democratic Unionist Party in Northern Ireland. This is a Northern Irish party, and they are demanding that the British government do something about this because they can't afford to lose thousands of highly paid aircraft jobs in their city. Meanwhile, Boeing, who brought this case with the government, because they know that in Trump, you know, we all remember Trump standing in front of the Boeing Dreamliner and whatever. They know they've got a strong ally within the government, and they're using this. But they're using it unfairly because Boeing reportedly are one of the highest, recipients of U.S. subsidies in America.
Oh.
And they are saying that Bombardier is cheating by having received, I think, $1 billion loan from the Canadian government in order to prevent them from going bankrupt some years ago. So effectively,
but their complaint is originally with United States subsidies to Bombardier, right?
No, Canadian subsidies. Yes, the Boeing complaint is this isn't a level playing field. Bombardier is receiving subsidies abroad, and therefore we can't compete. Well, that doesn't really ring true because Boeing never bid for that contract in the first place. So it's not as if they're kind of really sore of having lost a contract to somebody who could undercut them. What they're doing is they're seeing that there is a new aircraft company on the rise who may turn into a future rival. And they're seeing the opportunity to torpedo them just when they've put investment in to basically be able to fulfill a large contract.
Yeah, obviously, this is a way to sabotage this company.
The Canadian and the British government are absolutely livid at the moment, and they are demanding that this be withdrawn because they're saying, look, nothing here stacks up. But as I can imagine, in America, no one has ever really heard of this because this has stayed out of the media because it's full of Harvey Weinstein.
No idea.
Here is one of these cases where lobbying power by a company is being used to basically try to damage a foreign company, which is a competitor.
But you're saying this will hurt the British government. I'm listening carefully, but there's a lot of information you just shot out.
Well, the reason it could here's what could happen. Basically,
you said bring down the government is what the word is.
Could bring down the government because you have to understand that something like 4,000 highly paid aircraft jobs. I mean, these engineers earn a lot of money.
Yeah, you're not talking about
highly paid aircraft jobs because the wings for this airliner are built in Belfast in Northern Ireland. It is only through the support of a Northern Irish party that the Conservatives at the moment are maintaining a majority in the House of Commons. Without the support of that Northern Irish party, the Conservatives do not hold a majority in the House of Commons, and if all the other parties gang together, they can outvote them and they can bring down the government.
Yep.
So the DUP, the Democratic Unionist Party, they are effectively telling the government, you must do something. We are not going to accept this company being, sent to the wall by this sort of completely unfair American activity. So much so that the conservative government has actually said to Boeing, I mean, this has been on the national news, that the defense secretary has out and out said,
"No, man,
Boeing
you know
needs
what?
to..."
Make America great again.
Yes, precisely.
Yeah,
The
nice.
America
defense
first.
secretary, well, no, this is interesting. This will be interesting to Americans. The defense secretary has out and out said that if Boeing it continues to push ahead with this, then the British government will have to reconsider its options regarding its purchase of F-35 fighter jets from the United States and from Boeing. So basically, you know, the stakes are going up. That basically, because the British government are clearly saying that this is frivolous, that there is absolutely no.
No, I'm really sorry that you got a company up there in Belfast trying to run Boeing out of business, but we can't have that in America.
But that's how it's effectively progressed now.
I know Nazis got my back on that one. America first.
Well,
I'm trying to think of some difference that I could actually insert into
well, this is just it. This is not really a question of America first.
No, I know.
This is a question of simply just playing fair, and here is, as I say, the American government has still got the capacity to simply withdraw from this. The tariffs that have been levied are at the moment provisional. But of course, at the moment, this company doesn't know where it is. I mean, does it continue to build these airplanes? Because, you know, which aircraft company can afford to build 50 airliners and then eventually not be able to sell them?
Yeah.
So they are basically looking to their governments, you know, because mainly it's a Canadian company, but the wings are built in Britain. And they're looking to their governments and they're saying, look, what do we do? And the governments are looking to the American government and saying, look, folks, you need to get a move on. You know, decide what the hell you want to do. Clearly, Boeing is being tricky here. They're using their lobbying power within the American government. This has more than likely never crossed Trump's desk. This is basically within the US administration itself. This has happened. And
yeah, you might really think that America first, you know, I don't know, 300% though, when you start talking about numbers like that, anybody knows me would know that I could never be for that. I don't care how big the corporation is. You can't tax somebody 300% because it is going to be pushed up. Whatever you tax them is going to be pushed off to the consumer anyway.
Well, it seems quite clearly that here is an established aircraft company using its lobbying power to try and scupper an up-and-coming aircraft company. And
it's a little mom and pop organization, American company. You know, that came from nothing, I do believe.
Well, it's a bit of a monolith, isn't it? I mean, yeah. Some defense analysts are saying that there is a bit of a problem in America with there effectively only being Lockheed Martin and Boeing.
Oh yeah,
and therefore a lot of innovation seems to be being lost when you compare it, for example, with the Russians, where at the moment a hell of a lot of innovation is going on in aircraft design. So the fact that all these companies have gradually merged together, you've ended up with giant monolith Boeing that effectively now incorporates all the former aircraft manufacturers. But
yeah,
anyway,
so
I'm going off into weeds here.
No, so that way you don't have as much diversity in the research and development. I mean, I see what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah, no, I mean, you know, the F-14 was built by Grumman. You know, the F-15 was built by McDonnell Douglas. You know, so you have these different aircraft companies. They're now all Boeing.
Yeah, I mumbled both of those while you were talking too. Douglas, the DC-10, it was a wonderful. They're gone. It was a wonderful airplane, but it's the American way. I just don't like the idea of the government getting involved. If Boeing feels like they're being harmed in some way, well, take out an ad campaign or something, or make a better airplane, whatever. Well, negotiate next time. It's like you said, they didn't even bid. So
yeah, if Boeing had been part of the bid, they would have a leg to stand on. But given that they never partook in the bid, this seems to be frivolous.
I thought about a lot of things in my life. Flying was one, but I had an uncle died in a small plane accident. It kind of ruined my taste for it. The friend of mine that was in the plane with him, selling him the plane, he just bought it the day before, crashed it. He survived, man. He just committed suicide a few months ago. Crazy. Like the plane kept killing. But yeah, why did I say that? I don't know. Yeah, these things are dying out. And I just don't like the government getting involved. It shouldn't get involved. You know, let the companies bid, let it be an open free market. Everybody can put a bid in, let the contractors do that, let the companies and corporations decide who they want to hire, and let the best people win. It's just the way it should be. That is how we got all the great things that we have now, all the excellent flying machinery.
Well, I mean, it's if you think of it, it's also putting an American company. It's effectively putting the American airline that seeks to buy the airplanes in a ridiculous situation, because I mean, they now also don't know what's going to happen. Basically, the product they chose to buy now is suddenly in jeopardy. So this is not merely a matter of, well, you know, it's some foreigners being hurt. This is also basically jeopardizing a situation in an American company itself.
Yeah, yeah. What do you boys think? It's just silence from Common Sense Guy. I don't think this is up his street. He's over snoring right now.
Well, it's
I didn't realize you were called Common Sense.
Do you think about anything about it, British boy?
Well, I do, because it's kind of like, as what British has just explained, it's not a case of the companies trying to outbid each other and trying to do something themselves as a capitalist point. They're trying to go, well, Boeing's trying to go back to America to try and go, we need to inflict these sanctions on this company so they can bankrupt themselves, so we can get the contract for cheap, and then we can produce everything cheaply and get more money off of their English. Now, I wouldn't be bothered if it was the French, English, German, or whoever. It wouldn't matter to me. It's the point that you're going back to a different country to use your government to inflict inflation on the market to the point of trying to bankrupt a different company so you can get a contract for cheaper. Now, if that's not the ideal situation of socialism, I don't know what is.
Well, I don't even think that they're trying to get the contract for themselves, because they don't build an airliner that would match the specifications. So as such, they are just seeking to take out a rival, you know, an up and coming rival, rather than actually trying to get in on the act in that of that particular contract.
Well, that makes it even worse then. That means that they're just being asses for no apparent reason.
They're being completely facetious. They're just seeking to scupper an up-and-coming rival, rather than actually seeking to get some kind of gain for themselves whereby they get the contract in the end.
Exactly. I love your usage, scupper to scupper. You said that a couple times. It's a wonderful word. Scupper.
It's funny because their ideology is exactly the same as what the colonies would be anyway. We don't like you. You're a small country. You're starting to come up, so we're going to attack you.
I mean, I think, you know, in the, what is it? I'm just trying to sort of wax lyrical about some of the past. I think the Short Sunderland was also one of the planes that Shorts used to build. So that was one of those clipper planes that went across the Atlantic, and then I think during the Second World War was used as a submarine hunter. So yeah, Shorts has got quite a long-term history, and right now they're kind of owned by Bombardier, and they are building the wings for this airliner. And the rest of it is then built in Canada, and the wings are shipped across the Atlantic to Canada, and then it's assembled there. But yes, Shorts might eventually end up with 100 wings and nothing to do.
Nothing to do. This binary surfer just yelling us out. He wants you to know, Brett, that it's Boeing's MO to buy out up-and-coming companies for their market share when they get screwed over. It's not arbitrary. And then they go on to say they're screwing them over deliberately to be able to pick up their market share cheaply. I don't know if it's true. Is he saying G does the
It
same thing?
sounds like it, though, doesn't it?
I'm sure a lot of these big companies do that when they see something that's good, and it's like, ooh, we could own that. But the problem goes back. The biggest problem I see, it goes back to what the British is talking about, is that when you have tentacles out like that, it ends up getting bureaucratic, and it stifles ingenuity and creativity. You need the shops, the little mom and pops, and the people doing their own thing without some new high and mighty muck-a-muck that comes around. It's like, oh, I'm the vice president of big and important. I'm now your boss. Turn in your TPS reports.
Just a matter of interest here, just in order to kind of vary this a little bit. That's the short sterling. So that's what that Belfast factory built during the Second World War. So those are a few deposits that you can see those men are readying for Berlin.
Damn, that's quite the plane now, isn't it? You can see the nose gun right there. I mean, that's a big old fortress.
So that's like something like the Flying Fortress or the Liberator that the Americans flew.
It looks as big as a Flying Fortress. I can only see the nose.
It would be of that scale. I think it was the biggest four-motor bomber than the British made. The Lancaster is actually the famous bomber, because that was the one that dropped the bouncing bomb, if you remember. That was the technically most advanced bomber. But the short sterling was one of the three. I think there was also the Handley Page Halifax, which was the third big four-motor bomber that the British had. And this one here, again, is another short. That was one of the Clipper planes that Short built. So that originally was designed to carry passengers across the Atlantic. So in the 19 sort of 20s and 30s, there were those Clipper planes that kind of, outdid the ships in going across the Atlantic. And then in the Second World War, obviously, they were turned into sort of submarine hunters that carried torpedoes and could basically stay over the sea for hours and hours and hours until they spotted something and could take it out. So it just, for curiosity's sake, this is the sort of thing that Shorts was famous for. And they're still around today. And now the company is kind of being put in jeopardy because Boeing is suddenly up to its machinations.
How nice for them, for Boeing.
And as I say, interestingly, it could eventually even bring down the British government, which would be almost comical, because it's something very few people have heard of, but it's got the capacity to actually, to use the word you so like, to scupper the British government.
Yeah, we don't want to scupper them, but I'm looking at this short Sunderland, and I tell you what, Britt, it's so cool that even though I don't know if this is in use, but I can see the nose, where the nose gun is, and where the turret would be on the top of the back of the plane, on the spine of the plane.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just, I can even see where the tail gun glass is in the back. It just looks like quite a freaking thing. Sorry to just drift back toward that. Airplanes do just amaze me. When I was young, the Miami Vice did the episode where they actually had the dude on there that did the song Smuggler's Blues. He played the airplane guy, and they go to get their connection to fly him to Colombia to meet the boss in Colombia, right? But he stole the show, man. They got up there, these guys flying V, and he's jamming out, and he comes down. He's like, either you boys got any aspirin? And when they give him some, he like swallows it down with a Budweiser. When they go to leave, I know this is all tough. This is great, man. Though, if you haven't seen Miami Vice, man, go watch it. The original is excellent. If you care for that kind of thing. But when they're getting ready to go for the first time, he like stops and he's giving this heroic look over the runway, and you can see the swamps over there. And they're just looking at him. They don't ask him anything, but they just kind of both. It's that shot of Crockett and Tubbs. It's like they're both anyway. And they give him that look of what the hell's going on. And he's like, I like to give it a good last long look before we go. Because when you take off, you never know it's going to be the last time you see America or not. But that was one of the things when I was 12, 13 watching that. I was like, man, I want to be a drug running pilot. Wouldn't that be cool?
Should have
It's
moved
a-
over to Miami, bro.
A bit like
It's a good thing that
like,
you grew up there, Noga.
Mel Gibson in Air America.
That was a good one. Well, I spent summers in Orlando a lot of the time at that time, Notch. So I could have got some connections. Got a Cuban connection down there.
No, those are the bargain basement drug dealers. They had nothing on the guys like this one guy in my neighborhood who was, there was like supposedly 2 times that when he got arrested, it came out in the local news and stuff. And I remember as a kid, he had his own bodyguard. His son was the neighborhood bully, to say the least. And I just grew up seeing so much of that shit. And I know exactly what episode you're talking about. And that was Glenn Fry from the Eagle.
Glenn Fry. Yep,
Yeah.
Glenn Fry.
And I do call it, interesting that they had him on with his own music. But I think they also did that with Phil Collins.
Oh yeah, Phil Collins. Was he in the episode? They played "Coming in the Air Tonight." Feel it coming in the air tonight on the episode. Because if you remember, man, in that era when we were watching that as youth, it was like not only were they badass, and it was kind of like the first cop drama that appealed to anybody in of our age, but also, when did you watch a TV show where the popular music of the day was being played on that episode? They never happened. They would make up their own cheesy, stupid, just all the same old porno style soundtracks. And they actually did come out with Glenn Fry and
actually, since you mention In the Air Tonight, is anyone familiar with a clip that went viral some time ago with a group called an a cappella group calling themselves Naturally Seven? No. There is a clip of them on the Paris Metro singing that song, and it's quite something to watch because you can see the reactions of the crowd, because they just basically start off singing, and at first, anybody that's been on a subway or a tram system,
don't want to get bothered.
Some musicians, nobody really wants to be bothered, and everybody's thinking, oh, there's going to be someone coming trying to get some money off us anytime soon. So everybody's feeling desperately uncomfortable until one suddenly realizes just how good these chaps are, and eventually, yes, they've pretty much got the whole carriage jumping for joy. Yes, that they really are good. It's In the Air Tonight, Naturally Seven.
Naturally Seven. Yeah, I don't know why I looked up Acapella 7. I'll send the link out. I'm telling you, man, when we have good conversations like this, Brett, I might show this much. You know what I got hit with the hardest? If you remember, just recently we were talking about Gary Oldman coming out in this new movie, Churchill. And I was playing little snippets, and I was even saying I want to try this, because I will rotate, flicker between pictures when we're talking. Your picture, my image, Nachi's sense guy, and it picked it up. There was never a time where the images were visible to the audience longer than 2.5 seconds, 3, just like a quick shots. When you think about trailers, how they short attention span. And they took that, man. They hit it. Banned in all or whatever. I can't remember banned in all countries, but they got it anyway. Restricted. Sons of bitches. So I'm not going to play this, but I will look at it later, and I will send the link out to the general chat. And I love stuff like this when it's good. I'll tell you the worst. If you've never been to Mexico,
that's a music video. Don't look for the music video one. Look for the one on the Paris Metro. That's the one that went viral. That's that's really something else, and it's really a joy to watch because you can.
Paris subway.
Yes, yeah. That's the one. You can see there's 6,234,000 views.
Yeah.
As it kind of goes on, you kind of begin to appreciate A, how good they are, and B, just how the carriage is beginning to enjoy it.
Well, that was the one thing that I remember about Mexico more than anything else. There were 2 things that struck me about Mexico. Number one, the most aggressive panhandlers on earth. They put anybody in Washington, D.C. or Chicago to shame. The absolute most aggressive panhandlers on earth. And then the mariachi. I mean, you described it the best. Even a lot of them are really good. Okay. But when I'm giving them money, I'm paying them to go away. To go. If they start playing another song, I will give them what I gave them already and let them know that, look, I'm paying you to go over and play for them right over there. I don't want you to stand right here and yell, oh, you know, strumming the hell out of your guitar right here in my face. Anyway, there you go. That was strange. But there is that one magical time once in a while, and it even happened to Mrs. Ogre and I a couple of times, to where, yeah, when they actually hit it, they're so good that it's like, you know, you stop eating your food and now it suddenly becomes a small concert rather than an annoyance, you know, an intrusion into your semi-private affair, you know, your lunch or your dinner.
Hey, you guys want to hear a good panhandling story from South America with gypsies?
Oh, go ahead, because I know it's got to be rough down there. Lay it on us.
I was there. I was down in Chile on a business trip, and I was just walking around this one street, and this one woman, you know, she comes up to me, and she's pregnant. And then, by the way, that whole gypsy culture that you have in Europe, they have it in South America as well, but they speak Spanish and shit. Yeah, long story short, this woman very aggressively comes up and she's like, "Hey, can you please help me out? She wanted to read my palms, and she's already grabbing my hands." And I'm like, no, thanks. She's like, "Please, I need to feed my baby, you know?" And then she's got children around her as it is, but she's pregnant too.
Oh.
She was kind of frustrating me, and I started giving her a lecture on, well, if you're that poor and you already got kids, why are you pregnant again? And of course, it's all in Spanish. And she's like, no, I know, I understand, and I shouldn't, but please, let me just read your palm and stuff. You know, please, just leave me alone. I had to get somewhere. And I was like, no, thanks. And I forgot what I must have said to her, that she then all of a sudden, some older gypsy women came over and they wanted to kind of gang up on me. And so they go and they, you know, as I'm walking towards this other side of the park, they all come up to me and they're like, "Hey, look, we just want to read your palm. You know, why are you being so mean?" And blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, "Look, why are you people doing this? If you guys are," I start giving them like a libertarian speech.
Oh, yeah, well, that's getting weird at that point when they're chasing you down a coven of.
Here's what happens. I'm finally like, you know what, whatever. Let me get the experience. And I'm like, all right, so you want to read my palm? And you know, from libertarian, I become
you
like
gave in to them. You let them read your palm.
I was stupid enough to let them read my palm. Here's how they fucking they hoodwinked me. They kind of start moving me over without me even realizing it, moving me over into these bushes and trees, right? And so they're like, "Look," so like, let's just read your palm. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And they're like, okay. They gave me one quick palm read. I'm like, all right, cool, I'm good, and stuff like that. And so they're like, no, but what we really need right now is we need just one, some pesos, and it was Chilean pesos. It came out to like the maximum it was like $5 American. But nonetheless, she was like, all I need is that. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to just give you my money. She's like, no, just trust me. I just need to see the dollar bill, and then I'll be able to do it right. And I was like, oh, all right. So I take it out, and she does this thing where she kind of crumbles the bill, and it's gone. Like, before I know it, it's gone. All right, cool. That was a pretty cool trick. Now give me back the bill. And she's like, no, it's gone. And I'm like, what do you mean it's gone? She's like, yeah, money doesn't really matter. It's gone. Your fortune is, I forgot what she was telling me. I was like, and at that point I realized, oh shit, this fucking woman just hoodwinked me out of fucking $5. So I'm like, give me back the money. And I start getting aggressive with her, and she's like, hey, what are you doing? And I grab her by the arms. I start to shake her. And I'm like, where's my fucking money?
Holy shit.
At this point, like, even more gypsy women and children just come out of fucking nowhere, dude. And they just start, and I'm like, holy shit. I try to grab this woman and I drag her out into the street, out from the bushes where I was at. And I'm like calling for a cop, almost headlocking her. And then like the women are swarming around me like fucking bees until one of them's like, I'm going to get somebody who's going to stab you right here in the middle of the street.
What?
At that point, I let her go. As the cops are kind of coming over from the distance, but they're kind of like, oh, God, another stupid tourist who lost $5.
Oh, yeah, they don't want no part of that.
Dude, the next thing I know, all of them just disappeared. Like, in less than 10 seconds. Like, they're gone. Like, what literally was almost a dozen people, somehow, some way, just gone. Women and children fucking nowhere to be found. My $5 worth 100 Chilean bolivars or whatever the fuck they were gone. And I just felt like such a jackass.
Well, I just keep my head down.
And let me guess, you just had two policemen standing there looking at you, shrugging, going, "What do you want us to do?"
Oh, yeah, they don't care.
Yeah, they were like pretty much you idiots. So by the time I got into a cab, I started, because I was so incensed, and I start relating the story to the cabbie. He's like, "Oh yeah, no, they got me too."
Oh man, that'd make me feel a little better. At least the local cabbie got it. But still, I don't look at anybody, man. I mean, Mrs. Ogre and I, we've been all over. And it's something for me to say. I've never been to South America, but it's something for me to say that they beat, Washington, D.C., New York City. People could be pretty aggressive. Atlanta, Georgia. There's some aggressive panhandlers where it's almost to the point where you feel like the message trying to be conveyed is if you don't pay some money, you're going to be hurt.
Oh, yeah, I've heard.
I never buy into any of that stuff, but I usually avoid it altogether by just...
You do realize that from now on, every single time I see Sophane, I will immediately think of him being an aggressive panhandler who's threatening everybody to get hurt.
He looks like he'd be one. Well, look, this is what happened one time. Let me tell you a true story. Miss Soger can hear me. We were down there one time with my sister going to a place called Buckhead Highway to party. Open 23 hours a day, 365 days a year. The strip is with all these bars and stuff. They close 1 hour a day to clean up. Every other hour of every other day. Christmas, no matter. Can't stress that enough. It's always open. We go down there to party. We're coming up the street, and this aggressive panhandler at a stop sign, he's like, "Oh, come on, man. I know y'all got a little money. I know y'all got a little money. I'm trying to get out of this town. I ain't from here. I was called here to visit my aunt. I don't know anything around here. Blah, 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 blah." A lot of traffic. We come around the block. I see him about 3 minutes later, and I'm like, "Hey, bro, come here for a minute. We're trying to get up to Buckhead Highway. What's the best way to avoid us?" And he was like, "Oh, man, you cut down 3rd Avenue, blah, blah." I was like, "I thought you were trying to get out of town. You didn't know where to go." I said, "All of us white people look alike, don't we? You had no idea it was right over there. You were telling me that story, remember?" And then, he was like, "Oh, man." But anyway, there you go. There's my panhandler story. That happened, man. I was like, I got it. I did not give him. Actually, when the first story was given, I knew it was BS. I think I gave him $5. But I mean, my gracious, if somebody's got a good spiel to me, that's what it is when it comes to panhandling. If somebody gets me to look at them and I got no choice but to hear their spiel, that's the next step. I actually want to hear a lie, or I wanted like blunt truth, somebody to say, "Listen, I could tell you want a sandwich, but I want a frickin' bottle of Wild Irish Rose right now. And in a $10 rock." Yeah, I'd be like, "All right, man, here's 20. That should cover it." Anyway, enough of that. I'm gonna get school to get Britisher took the show over last night. Remember, it's like we don't even talk about what we deviated into, but I blame it on Nachi, completely on Nachi. And then Common Sense Guy took the day off the last time, so really, ultimately, it's his fault. I think we agreed on that anyway.
I think we were quite unanimous. It was in any future occurrence when there was any problem, it is henceforth to be the Common Sense Guy's fault. Yes, I think that was unanimously agreed.
Yeah, and I'm down for that.
I didn't agree.
Well, that's your fault.
I wasn't asked to vote on this issue.
That's your problem, man. That's your fault. No, we can keep going with that. See how that works? We just keep going. It's your fault. Oh, anyway, yeah. You know what, boys? I got to get to splitting, though. I even said it to Mrs. Ogre. She's back and about. I think she made some soup. It's a dreary day. I'm very much contemplating. I have an outside boiler, and it's just got these 3 big metal pipes in a house, basically. And then pipes are full of water that goes through a pump, and it pumps into a thing that looks like a car radiator in a closet over here. And those pipes get heated up by a furnace underneath of it. And that water runs into here, and I blow air over that furnace, over that radiator, and it transfers the heat. It's even called a heat exchanger. It transfers that heat into the house. And so it hasn't been fired up since last winter. I'm very seriously thinking, because it's so just... The word is miserable, I think, when it's about 50 degrees out and raining. like a steady, not pouring rain, not quite enough to where you would say I won't do anything outside without feeling a little sissified, you know, because it's not, but it's raining and it's 50. I think the English people, you have to understand that, right? Because isn't that every single day there, 50 and raining?
Not every single day, but a fair amount.
It's a fair amount, yes. It kind of begins somewhere around about September, and then it ends somewhere in late May. And then that is our brief period of spring, summer, and autumn, and then we resume back to the prolonged winter. Yes.
Well, at least you get 5 months. The joke here is that you get 9 months of winter, and then 3 months of bad weather. Yeah, that's a joke. But for me, it's all good. The summer here was great. That was my long look. I'm going to do it again. I'm just glad to see a Notch, and I promised that I wouldn't kiss anybody's butt on air today. It is great to see it. Anybody that doesn't know Notch is, I'll make sure that there's a link. I'm sure the boys will remind me if I somehow forget it in this live stream. It'll direct you to Nachi's channel. I don't know how you could possibly know about this channel and not know who Nachi was. I really appreciate the work.
Yeah, actually, if I can just interject here, Nachi, you seem to be getting close to 1,000 subscribers.
How do you break past that? And by the way, congratulations, Or, because I saw you broke past that a little while back ago, and I wish I would have had the time to have been on the streams.
It looks like Saturday will be the 24-hour this Saturday, because I believe Mrs. Ogre works, and I'm going to pick that day because I don't work on Sabbath. So I'm probably going to just do a 24-hour. If you feel like stopping by any time in that, I'll send you a link to each one. If you don't, just can't make it, that's cool.
I mean, the reason I mentioned this was because have you got any sort of grand, eloquent cause that you are seeking to kind of do should you get to 1,000 subscribers?
Oh yeah, no, I would. I would love to do I guess another one of those, a celebratory 1,000 subscriber stream, but nothing along the veins of 24 hours.
You're not enough of a masochist, aren't you?
No, that's one of the dumbest things I ever said I would do, to be honest. Yeah, I've got a plan. I have a plan.
Yeah, just people out there, if we can just try and nudge Nachi free towards 1,000, that would be helpful, because then we can at least see what he would get up to if he gets to 1,000. Because Nachi being a rather creative individual, I think it might be something worth seeing.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate that, man. And hey, before I forget, man, I really love being on your streams. It's just that lately I've been working some insane hours, and I've been listening in on what you guys have been doing. That's for sure.
Yeah, you don't have to explain anything to me. You're always welcome here, though, mate. We do try to keep it. I mean, don't get me wrong. If someone else like yourself had swung by and you said something today, I'd have said, well, whoever, insert other cool person here is there, and we don't usually ever go over 4. And you know why? You've been doing this long enough to know. In the old days, I have this thing full, 8 people in here. There's no way to manage that kind of chaos. And then what happens is nobody gets to say much, if anything, and no one understands the damn word that was said. And and the Britisher gets accused for everything because we're the hosts. It's like it's their fault, because 8 people were there and nobody got to say a freaking word. Oh, but anyway, all that to be said, you're always welcome, man. We dig you. Not to gloat, but to come from the Britisher, it means that he watches a lot of this stuff. I mean, it's one of the things he does. It's a huge hobby. I believe he's trying to maybe do something a little more than hobby with it, but it's a huge hobby that he spends a lot of time in. So he sees a lot of people. And I don't want to compare him to that Simon fella with the music thing, but I mean, in a way, to me, when I see him say that this guy is good, it does say something. It really does, Nachi. That's all I can say. It's one of the highest praises that I know of in this little genre among the people I know of. Because he's very stingy with his approval.
Not especially from the colonial backwaters.
You're Spanish.
I mean, have you guys actually been? Because I love doing this as a hobby. It's the kind of thing that I just do anyway. But man, I'm really trying to see how to make a living doing these things. And like, at least with the Britisher, like, you haven't thought of maybe doing a couple of videos where you can maybe start getting work at maybe not the BBC, because the BBC is, I know you guys view the BBC the way we view CNN and MSNBC, but
Boo
I mean,
hiss boo.
say what?
Boo hiss boo.
But I mean, have you ever considered that? I mean, working as a staff writer or even a researcher and stuff?
Well, I mean, I just couldn't see it happening at the moment because it is such a tremendously politically correct organization, and not only the BBC, because the other channels are pretty much under the thumb of Ofcom in exactly the same way, and exactly the same sort of things are being demanded of them as is being demanded of the BBC. And effectively, if you don't fall into the category of being a black, lesbian, half Pakistani, gay, disabled woman in a wheelchair, preferably transgender, then you have
fluid.
at the moment getting into that institution anyway.
Yeah, all right.
Right, maybe at the
just gender me.
Raised by a single mother. You forgot raised by a single mother.
That's not me then.
From the ghetto. Oh man, but you guys, let's remember one thing too about Britty is he does write a script every week, at least one. Sometimes he does two. Also, he didn't really answer the question, but I know the answer to the question, and maybe he's already written a script to something. But you know, what more can you say? In this day and age, there's this, there's a hierarchy too. They're all kissing cousins, you know. So if you don't know somebody already, you're very, very, very fortunate indeed if somehow or another you write an episode of 30 Rock or The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
And even if you do write part of it, who knows, man? When they get that big, it's a group of people that work together, and you might submit a little something and not even get credit.
I've got a little question for you, Nacho.
Yep.
How did you ride out the hurricane?
It wasn't as apocalyptic as they made it out to be. And that's why I made that little video. And granted, it was pretty much just an improv stream of consciousness thing at the moment. But what I was really, the thing that I was trying to communicate was, it was interesting to see. I mean, granted, we all know the news distorts and all that, but the kind of panic that they were creating among people, especially like with my wife, because it was one of the first times. Well, no, she's actually gone through another hurricane when we were up in New York. But over here, they were talking about storm surges in a way where they were making it seem like all of Miami was going to be 10 feet underwater, you know? And that was really affecting the kind of decisions that people were trying to make. And
yeah, made you go crazy, wouldn't it?
No, yeah. And I was already, I'm trying to put it in perspective the best I could, that very Thursday, the Thursday before, when I saw what had happened to the island of St. Martin and Barbuda, because there's also Barbados, but no, this is Barbuda, they were leveled. I mean, completely leveled. And I tried thinking to myself, okay, let me remember these are small islands. They're basically, there's no barriers. They're getting the hurricane fresh off. Plus, they're borderline third world countries, so their infrastructure is probably shit. But that really scared me. And that really, put the fear of God into this atheist of like, holy shit, I may very well lose everything, because that has happened here in Miami. So I was pretty well panicked.
Remember Andrew? Were you around for Andrew? I lived in Orlando when Andrew hit.
Dude, I drove from Orlando.
Homestead off the map.
I drove from Orlando back to Miami through Hurricane Andrew.
Oh,
yeah. Wow. And so yeah, it was really hard to assess what was going to happen. But fortunately, by the time it hit us, it was a Category 3 hurricane, which is still pretty strong. But no, fortunately, there wasn't that much damage. But one thing for anybody out there, all the amount of work and effort that you put into preparing for the hurricane, if it takes you about a week, that's going to take you about a week and a half to undo it all afterwards. And today I was still, in my backyard dealing with, the undoing of it. And
you mean boarding windows and shuttering stuff up and stuff like that is what you're talking about?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I'm really lucky because in the townhouse that I live in, which, was my parents and stuff, they had already built in shutters. But like for example, I had to help my neighbor put up some plywood shutters. This little old man, and oh my God, it was so funny. It's so true what they say about no good deed goes unpunished. Because this guy's kind of a grouch as it is. But I remember helping him put up the plywood, dude, and it was such a pain in the ass. And after I was pretty much done, I remember asking him, okay, because needless to say, his windows and stuff are very old, so I kind of had to make do with what he had, and he had very few bolts, blah, 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 and I put the damn thing up. And I remember I was like, all right, so this looks good, huh? And then I remember he was like, yeah, I'm still not convinced. I'm no thank this. And I was like, bro, I can't fucking. And it was just interesting to see. He appreciated it, of course.
Oh, of course.
One of the plywoods fell on my leg, fucking almost cut a gash into my thigh. I fucking spent like 3 or 4 hours trying to help out this old man who kept fucking just from behind, like, you're not doing it right. Everything in Spanish, of course. You're not doing it right. You don't know what you're doing.
Oh, man, no. Lord of mercy.
You see, I was most disappointed when I eventually got to see that video of you in the dark talking to the camera whilst the hurricane was going about. Because in my mind's eye, I had this image of a madman in his boxer shorts on a surfboard riding the surf during the hurricane, wearing a Mexican luchador mask with a bottle of Southern Comfort in one hand, screaming at the heavens as he traveled across the waves. But yeah, it was somewhat of a different outcome, apparently.
No, fortunately, man. But I'll tell you what, it really has made me reconsider what exactly is climate change. Apparently, it is. You can't deny it anymore.
The hurricanes made you think that?
You know how many we've had. This has been quite
nothing, man. When Opal hit, oh man, I was in Orlando, wasn't in the late 90s. One big cycle there. There was like 7 in 1 year. I don't know how long you lived around there, or if you can get out just the history books, you can see that we've had times when there's been like boom, 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 boom. 7 big. And really, this isn't a huge year, right? How many made landfall in Florida this year? One. When was that? I mean, 2008, wasn't it? There was like 4 tropical depressions. There was 2 or 3 made landfall.
Well,
anyway.
In 2005, there was Katrina and Wilma. So they made it all the way to the W's that year, or at least the ones that made it into the news.
Anyway, I'm sorry for laughing. I thought you were joking at first because I've heard that, but I mean, with all respect, I'm not sure that the hurricanes are any predictor of. I'm not sure that that's any predictor of global warming.
Oh no, but wait, for sure, because of the oceans. If I'm not mistaken, hurricanes are just a natural cooling system for the oceans. And
no,
I guess they also
flaps his wings off the coast in Africa, and it makes
the warmer the water is in the tropics, the more violent the hurricanes are going to become. So therefore, there is technically a connection between hurricanes and warmth. So if the atmosphere gets warmer and the water gets warmer, then technically speaking, the hurricanes should contain more energy. But it's very, very difficult to kind of say that a particular year having particularly violent hurricanes would be specifically linked to global warming. That's not to say that global warming isn't happening. It clearly does appear to be happening. But if you would think of the atmospheric temperature change, it would only therefore actually create a fractional water temperature change. And it's the surface water of the ocean that seems to be driving the hurricanes. So therefore, it would be so fractional when it comes to the water temperature that I'm not really sure one could link it to global warming.
It's hurricanes. It's all man-made, and we should throw our guns into the hurricane when it comes by to appease the gods of climate change. But that said, look, I really got split, boys, and I like the final word. So whatever you wanted to say to my smart-ass reply, Nachi, we'll start with you if you want to say something. I didn't spring this on you. I'm springing it on, but I think you've watched the show long enough that we'd like to do a wrap-up at the end. And we'll go right in. We'll go right in line. You say whatever the hell you want, as long as you care to. Go to Common Sense and British or myself. Before we do, we like to keep it pretty sacred, not interrupt each other unless you got some fact that somebody's struggling for. You want to interject that way. I'm the one that needs to remember that more than anybody else. And thank you so much for coming by. Nachi, I believe I can speak for the Common Sense guy and for the Britisher when I say, you're a really great guest. Very polite, very intelligent, very insightful. Whether I agree with you or not, I do believe my co-hosts appreciate having you around.
No, man, same here, dude. I really enjoy hanging with you guys because I can just consider this hanging out with my online buds, and yeah, you guys have kind of, I feel like, granted, I don't know you guys, I haven't met you or anything like that, but I listen to enough of the streams, even the ones that I don't get a chance to be on and stuff, and I really like what you guys are doing, man. It's very fun, very, needless to say, conversational and very informational. And as opposed to other streams that I, drop in and stuff like that, this one really feels very down homey. And I like the contrast of the British accents with your Southern accent. And yeah, man, it's fun. It's fun being on and fun listening. That's my last word.
Oh, okay. To be honest, I don't really have much of a last word, to be honest, today. I suppose I could go into some I won't use that word because I can't pronounce it. I could go into waxing lyrical about something, but I'm not going to. But I will touch on the fact about Eminem and the video and everything else like that. It's more to the point of what Ogre's also portrayed as well. That if you have to rely on the argument of saying, you support me, but I'm going to draw a line in the sand, and if you don't support me, then F you, then obviously you do not have an argument to stand on in your moral grandstanding. In other words, trying to pull people in by the fact of if you don't support me, you support somebody else. That is not a way of winning an argument. That is a way of being a child and trying to get your own way. I know some people go, well, what's the difference? Well, winning an argument means that you win it by actual facts and actually knowing what you're talking about. Getting your own way means that people won't bother doing what you're trying to do because you're moral grandstanding. You're literally screaming like a child. When a mum gives an ice cream to a child because it's just to keep the child quiet. That's literally what happens when people draw a line in the sand. And as well with that little point, if you're trying to compare yourself to a dictator in your mind, when the dictator himself has never said you can or cannot do anything or anything else like that, and that even goes for taking a knee. He never said you couldn't take a knee. He said you shouldn't take a knee. So that's a different other point, obviously. But if you're going to do that to somebody you're portraying as a dictator, then when you say, do you do this or do that, I'm giving you an ultimatum, you are going literally against what you are preaching. You are actually becoming what you're trying to fight against. I just wish that when people actually talk about what they think and what they feel and whatever, that they realize what they're actually talking about. Because the contradictions in what people actually talk about are there for everybody to see. I just think it's funny that people don't always tend to point out the contradictions in what you say. And that's why I enjoy talking with the Britisher and why I enjoy talking to the Ogre and why I enjoy talking to Nachi as well. Because though we all have our different opinions, and yes, we agree on quite a lot of things, believe it or not, even if we do or we don't agree, if we say something stupid, we will get pulled up on it. And that is the only way that you get better. And I won't go down that little point of trying to say that what makes everything better in the world, because I've done that loads of times. So I'll pass that on to the Britisher.
Well, you know what to say today. I think the two subjects that I would like to bind together here are, the Bombardier story that I mentioned with Boeing, and also in a way the YouTube story, with what Philip DeFranco and H3H3 and Boogie said. And that is that in both cases, what really people are asking for is not any privileged treatment. They're not looking for anything particularly complicated. The only thing they're actually looking for is a level playing field. Just basically make sure that the same rules apply to everybody. I mean, bizarrely, coming to think about it, in a way, that is also one of the great issues people have with this whole social justice malarkey, because people are always wanting special rules for this particular minority or for that particular minority, or, I mean, you know, or for women. I mean, I separate them out because people are always referring to them as a minority, whereas they actually are more than 50% of the population. But I think that is what kind of grinds with people who are just traditional liberals in that regard. Because that's really what someone who is a liberal really at heart is looking for. As in, just have the same rules for everybody. Just have the same opportunities for everybody, have the same chances for everybody, have the same, you know, just basically the same rules. Don't try and micromanage everything by creating different rules for different groups of people. But also, you know, in economic terms, don't try, and I'm just using this word again because the ogre likes it so much, don't try and scupper somebody who is effectively an up-and-coming company just because you are trying to kind of down a rival, or, as somebody intonated in the chat apparently, try and ruin them so that you can snap them up later once they're bust. I mean, perhaps it's a people often allude to it being a particularly British sentiment, and that is that sentiment of fair play. To just be fair. We're not, you know, nobody is asking for anybody to go out of their way in making some special effort. Just mete out the same treatment to everybody. And, you know, to bring that back to the smaller scale view, that is in a way what all the small YouTubers are asking for on YouTube. Nobody is asking for special favors. They're just basically asking that perhaps other people who somehow qualify for special privilege under the current system, that they are simply just treated like everybody else. And that no matter who you are or what you are, you get the same chance to prosper as everybody else. Because, you know, like it or not, that really is the foundation of what people would call diversity. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Mr. Ogre, over to you.
Wow, it was an abrupt break. Good points, though, man. And just briefly, thanks again for coming back and seeing us, Common Sense Guy. We're so glad that your affairs are in order and you were able to join us again today. I want to be diplomatic, and so I'm going to try. I'm going to tie it in the Las Vegas debacle. But this is my question to everyone: what law or what registry or registration or what would have stopped this particular crime? What law could we have that would stop any crime? Isn't there already a law that says it's not okay to take a rifle and from ambush position, elevated ambush position, mow down your fellow citizens enjoying a country music concert? I think that's against the law right there. That's against the law. So I think when we're dealing with all kinds of things, I got to remember this, and it applies in so many different ways. But when we're dealing with things that come up in life that affect us, that affect our countrymen, that affect our way of life, that affect how we feel about our safety or security, whatever it may be. It's natural to want to find the switch, the thing that you can do to make sure it'll never happen again. But let's remember, folks, they said that World War I was the war to end all wars, and then that's what they said about World War II. There's still the wars now, right? They're always going to be. It's hard to buy. There is no war to end all war. Well, and that said, I want to make this point before I just cut it loose, because I was almost just going to not. But you know what? It's no worse than what I've already said, if that was bad at all. What law ever stops crime? And how does looking back on things, using hindsight, going to fix things that we can't control in the future? I honestly believe that personal accountability is the way to go. Right now, well, look, I'm not going to get any more deeper into that case. So look, be good to your friends, be good to your family members, be good to your loved ones. Don't shoot people from elevated positions. Be quick to say you're sorry. Be even quicker to accept an apology, especially when that thing your friend, your family member, your loved one has done seems to be so huge you'll never be able to forget about it. Because crew here and constant viewer, you know why. At a time you think not, your friends, your family members, your loved ones, your life and your cause may be blown away by a sniper.